Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
Ian, you know what we're going to start the show on today?
Yes, I do.
And I have to ask you this question. We will get to the Predators. This morning I was on Robbie and Rex Road, and Joe, to his credit, was like, because we've given him such a hard time about Rand Carthon, about taking a stand. Joe was like, you got to take a stand. And I said, we will do that today on the program about Andrew Burnett at 3:30 today. And I know that's a big topic, and last night's game was inexcusable, and of all the disasters they've had this year, maybe the worst. But we'll get to that. But today is a special day because it is December 6th. And on December 6th, 2 years ago, the Tennessee Titans shocked everybody by firing general manager John Robinson. 2 years ago today. And I'm here to ask everybody one very simple question. And it's the same question that you get asked by every politician, every election cycle. Are you better off now than you were 2 years ago? Or is your life better as a Titan fan since John Robinson got fired? And the reason that I picked today to be the day that I circle and I highlight and I say, this is the line of demarcation, is because I view this singular decision as the day that Amy Adams Strunk went completely insane when it came to running the franchise. She did what we call the Leroy Jenkins, where she said, I'm taking my franchise back. Was Robinson actively doing a good job at the time of his firing? I mean, I hate to say it, that's debatable. You know, I mean, again, they were 7-5 in first place. Robinson won 61% of his games. Got it. But the draft picks, not great. The acquisitions, that Aaron Brewer at left guard and PT at right tackle. There were a lot of things I didn't like. So I probably would have leaned towards no in terms of actively doing a good job. But nobody had ever seen a winning general manager fired in the middle of the season. And because of that, that was my moment where I realized, and I've said this time and time again, as soon as the Robinson thing happened, I talked to everybody I could talk to. So what the hell happened over there? Thinking there had to be like an HR story. There had to be something. There had to be something. And there was nothing. There was nothing. I mean, it was, yeah, you know, Amy just decided that she had seen enough and it was time to move on, and that's why she went ahead and did what she did. And at that point in time, I said to myself, oh, my God. I remember it like it was yesterday. I think Caroline was either off or doing the midday show that day, and so it was just me. Ian was out. Nick Keyser was in. And I put my hand in my head in my hand, and I said, oh, my God. The Titans are one of the dumb franchises. And you know what I mean when I say dumb franchises. The ones that can't get out of their way. The Jets, the Browns, the Raiders, the Jags, the Panthers. You know it starts at the top. They can't get out of their own way. They do stupid things like trade 3 first-round picks for Deshaun Watson and then sign him to a contract they can't get out of. You know what I'm talking about. The Commanders were a dumb team until they forced Dan Snyder out, and voila. They're a real team. But at that time, 2 years ago, everybody pushed back. It felt like. I think there were some people out there that had some brain cells, but there were a lot of people that pushed back. And they said, no, Jared, no. And it is time for a change. She stepped up to the plate. And I thought, oh, God. Do you guys not realize that when you give your general manager a contract extension in January and fire him in December, that is the sign that your organization may not be run very well? So since then, in the 2 years that we have seen go by the calendar, the Titans are 9-25. By the way, the Carolina Panthers are 8-26 over the same stretch. And the only difference between the two teams is that you beat them by 7 at Nissan Stadium last year. You're tied with Carolina. The Titans are 2-9 against the AFC South since John Robinson got fired. Remember that. The Titans have one win over a team that has qualified for the playoffs. That would be Miami last year on the road. Now, they did beat Houston this year, and Houston may end up qualifying for the playoffs, so maybe we will be 2. And Mike Vrabel, who's arguably the best coach the Titans have ever had, Mike Vrabel has been fired. On December 6th of 2022, 2 years ago, the Tennessee Titans were 7-5 in first place in the AFC South and had a 3-game lead. And she fired them. The Titans game release notes from that week said at that time, had this nugget: the Titans' .867 winning percentage, 13-2 in division games from 2020 to 2022 is the best in the NFL. You won 87% of your games for a 2.5-year period. Since then, you are 2-9. And where do you sit now? Well, technically, the Titans aren't eliminated from the playoffs, but even if they went out, they'd have a 16% chance of making the playoffs. I saw today somebody, I think it was Fox Sports, said their chances of making the playoffs are 0.2%. That week, the Titans lost to Jacksonville 36-22, and I firmly believe the distraction from the owner is what caused that loss and cost you the playoffs. At that point in time, you had a 3-game lead on Jacksonville. If they had lost that game, they would have been eliminated from the playoffs that day. They spanked you. They came out the gate and they smoked you. A month later, you went to Jacksonville with Josh Dobbs at quarterback. And look, Josh Dobbs ain't perfect, but I know Ryan Tannehill's better. And you almost won that game. Why? Because you were focused. The week of the Jacksonville game where the owner went Leroy Jenkins, you were not. And I said to somebody with the Titans the day after Robinson was fired, because this is how the Titans operate. And this will be the same way when they fire Ran Carthon, which is every day until they fire Ran Carthon, everybody over there will tell you how great of a job Ran Carthon is doing. Every single person, including their state-run media arm, which will tell you, let Ran cook. The second they fire Ran Carthon, every single person that is telling you to let Ran cook associated with the Titans will tell you, well, we had to do this, Jared. I mean, there just was no, because that's how they are. They turned on Mike Mularkey. They turned on Mike Vrabel. They turned on John Robinson. I'm sure they turned on Floyd Reese over there. But I said to someone the day after Robinson was fired, and this is a quote from a text message. I said, quote, I know this. In my lifetime, the Titans have had 2 general managers that could build teams. And I also know the time in between them was like Moses wandering the desert. Where do you sit now? 3-9, and the season has been over since September. So here's the real question I have today. This is not a, should they have fired John Robinson? Let's relitigate that, because I think the answer is pretty obvious. And there's no way to know. You know, Derek Mason thinks the best thing that ever happened to John Robinson is that they fired him because all the losing that followed, he wasn't a part of. Maybe, but I can't give that to him when he wasn't the general manager of the team when those losses occurred. But here's the question that I have, which is, do they regret what they did? Do they regret that their belief, and it's not just Amy on this, but do they believe that what they thought that day, the way they thought they needed to fix the franchise, the way they thought they needed to take the franchise back over, that's what this was about. It was about power and arrogance, and this is what it was about. Do they think that was a good idea? because every move since the Robinson firing has been a hand in the air from the owner. I can fix it. And every move since then, whether it's Rand Carthon, Chad Brinker, Brian Callahan, Will Levis, has gotten you to the point to where you're one of the worst teams in the NFL. You're one game better than the Carolina Panthers. So do they regret it? Or do they still think they made the right call? And if you thought that day they made the right call, now that you've seen what's happened post-Robinson, do you feel the same way? And that's how we're starting today. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. I could not believe it. And I was on Robinson's rear end. In fact, the people at the Titans, they were like, you've been on his ass every day. I'm like, I know. But again, hate to say it, I didn't say he should be fired. And that's what they did. 9-25. 615-737-1025. It's our phone number, 615-737-1025. And I still think deep down inside, everybody is kind of unclear about why they did what they did when they did it. And I have a theory. I think I've shared it. I don't know. We'll get to it in your phones on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. It's Stillman and Company on 102.5 The Game.
honestly, I had made the decision. It was time to move forward. There was no reason to go 6, 7, 8 weeks, however long we remain in the season. It was not fair to John. It was not fair to the team. It just seemed the right thing. It gives us plenty of opportunity now to identify future candidates that we're going to interview, to get to know watch the internal candidates. It's, I'm just not that person that's going to sit on a decision like that.
Amy Adams Strunk, after she fired John Robinson, after she sent Mike Vrabel to the podium for 2 days to answer questions about John Robinson being fired, finally did a sit-down interview with Teresa Walker. There were a handful of clips that came out of it. That was one of them. I'm just not going to sit on a decision. I had made up my mind. It was time to move forward. It wasn't fair to John, she said, to fire him in the middle of the season at 7-5 and in first place. And again, I knew when that happened. And again, I think that there could have been a whole huge nuanced discussion about John Robinson at the end of the year. Robbie Stanley says, and that I like Robbie Stanley, and I actually like his opinions. Don't always agree with them, but I do like his opinions, and I think, unlike his partner, they come from a place of critical thinking. But Robbie Stanley said if he owned the team, he'd have fired John Robinson at the end of the year. And again, that could have been a legitimate discussion, especially if they had lost the last 7 games and missed the playoffs the way that they did. But I'm not going to make the assumption that they would have lost the last 7 games, because I think they would have beat Jacksonville that week if they hadn't fired John Robinson. Which brings me back to why Amy Adams Strunk did what she did when she did it. I am convinced the biggest problem with this organization when they were winning was arrogance. Arrogance from Robinson, arrogance from Vrabel, and arrogance from Amy. Everybody wants to get their flowers. Everybody wants to be the reason the team is successful. Everybody wants to feel like I did that. And the problem with the Titans was I think there was too much of that. And I understand why Amy wanted a collaborative process, because I think the relationship between Robinson and Vrabel probably started to go downhill a little bit. But that's what Mike Vrabel does to you. He's a conqueror. That's what he's going to be. He comes from the land of Belichick. A lot of people at the time could not figure out why Amy Adams Strunk did what she did and the timing behind what she did when she did it. Again, the trade deadline had passed. So what? You have to fire John right then and there so that he doesn't sign the wrong guard to the practice squad? Or did you do it because that was the time that she had to do it and get the fans behind her? I've been told, and I don't know if I believe this or not, but I've been told that A.J. Brown's performance against the Titans had nothing to do with John Robinson's firing. Ian, do you believe that?
I don't know. That's a good question. I guess so.
So that's what I was told, that Amy had made up her mind and that it had nothing to do with how AJ played. And I've been told that Amy doesn't even regret the AJ trade as much as you guys regret it. Now, again, I don't know what I believe, but here's what I think happened. I think Amy Adams Strunk probably felt the tension between Robinson and Vrabel. And with Vrabel, that's just how it's going to be. And wherever Vrabel goes for his next job, and I think Jacksonville might be his next stop. Wherever Vrabel goes for his next job, either he's got to be in charge or he's going to push the guy who is out. That's just how it's going to be. And at that point in time, Vrabel was the reigning coach of the year, and everybody in the media was smelling his farts, and there was nothing Mike Vrabel could do wrong, even though his offensive coordinator, Todd Downing, was a total boathead, but it didn't matter. So again, I think she gave him the matching contract extensions as a way of taking each other's hands and putting them together and saying, you and you will march together. And they said, yes, ma'am. But again, we're talking about Mike Vrabel. And it's not like John Robinson had a very good history of working with others either. See Mike Mularkey. And so I think Amy said, okay, I'm going to say this. And then I think in the middle of the year, she soured. Whether it was the AJ trade, whether it was Farley, whether it was Radens, because TD had reported at that time that the Caleb Farley and Dylan Radens thing was a big sticking point with ownership on Robinson. You know, Caroline kept bringing up, it can't be about Julio Jones and Isaiah Wilson and Jadeveon Clowney, and it can't be about that. Kevin Dodd, it can't be about that because she gave him a contract extension after that. And Caroline's right. I think Amy used the opportunity after AJ's game to fire John because that's when she knew she could do it. I think this was a calculated plan. I think that they said, hey, we're going to lose this game. When we lose this game to Philadelphia, because Philly was really good and you're on the road, we're going to fire John Robinson. And the reason we're going to do it is because you can't fire a general manager. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but you cannot get your fans to understand. If you fire a general manager who had won 3 straight division titles and the Titans were headed that way, so what do? The fans are the most mad after A.J. Brown goes off and he spanks the goalposts. You fire Robinson on Tuesday and the fans go, yeah! Again, anything could have happened the rest of that season. The Titans could have lost all the 7 games and missed the playoffs with Robinson as the GM. They could have done what I think would have happened is I think they would have beaten Jacksonville. They probably would have picked up another one along the way. They probably would have finished the year off at 9-8, win the AFC South, and they would have hosted Brandon Staley and the Chargers in a home playoff game. Would they have won that game? I don't know. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they could have. You can fire John Robinson, they get to the division round of the playoffs, 3 straight division titles, 4 straight playoff appearances. You go fire that? Really? So I think that's why she did what she did when she did it. And again, I think this all goes back to the power angle between all of them. To Robinson, that was his organization. He was the general manager of the Tennessee Titans. He had final say on the roster. He got the guy he didn't want to be coach out of the way. It was his team. For Mike Vrabel, he's the greatest Mike Vrabel there ever was. Just ask him. He'll tell you. He didn't want John Robinson screwing up his roster anymore. I'm Mike Vrabel. I'm the smartest guy in the room. And to Amy Adams Strunk, I think there was a little Bud Adams in her. She wanted to be the one who at the end of the day gets the final say, and she's the owner. So if that's what she wants, that's what she gets. But all this conniving and power playing and all this bullcrap, this is how you go from a well-run organization that makes the playoffs on a consistent basis. And they weren't perfect. They missed on draft picks. They drafted Corey Davis 5th overall, which is a disastrous pick, given the value of what that pick represented and the players that were taken behind him. But they were a well-run, stable organization. And all of a sudden, because of the jealousy and the anger and the conniving and from the owner to the coach to the GM, you're the Carolina Panthers. And I hope they can look back on the last 2 years in which the coach is gone, the GM's gone, the team's terrible. It doesn't feel like there's any hope. There are no young core players on this team that you build around. Like no cornerstone star players. Except maybe NWI. There's nothing there. And I hope she can look back and say, you know, maybe I need to go sit in the owner's box and mind my business. Maybe I need to hire real football people, not the third guy in San Francisco that says the ball didn't bounce their way, or the senior personnel associate at the Green Bay Packers, whatever that is, but like a real football person, and I got to trust them, and then I got to stay out of the way. That's what she needs to do. And I hope she can look back on that and she can realize that. 615-737-1025. We got a bunch of phones, so we're to them on this. Again, the 2-year anniversary of the day for me in which the Titans went right down the toilet. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number on the Fireball Hot Take Friday, and we'll hit them. 615-737-1025. If you're looking for a great gift to give someone for Christmas, you should check out, or Hanukkah, you should check out some of Nashville's best deals at theGameNashville.com/deals, because right now you can purchase half-off gift cards for Fog Street Lawn Club, Bad Axe Throwing, Premier 6 Theater, Frist Art Museum, and Soar Adventure Tower.
What did John Robinson do? Let's take our guesses. What did he do, AJ?
I mean, there's so many possibilities. I guess just it's just probably just some minor disagreements that have kind of continued to happen throughout the season. I guess that's all it might be.
Okay, so you're saying pissed off Rabel?
Not just say, I don't know. He probably has disagreements with the front office as well. I would imagine the ownership and everybody there.
So pissed off the owner.
Yeah, obviously,
Okay.
if the owner's firing you, they're not happy.
Okay, so you're saying he pissed off the owner.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what he did to piss off the owner, but yeah, that's what
This is your guess. My guess, pissed off Rabel. Okay? Your guess?
One of
Him
the
and
same.
him and the OC were having a power hour on the back of the plane.
Okay. Might have got caught on tape.
My
Sure.
got caught on tape.
Yeah.
Oh.
Good point. That's the direction I was going as well.
Tone.
Yeah, it's something unfootball related.
Okay. I mean, that's
It has nothing to do
Tony.
with disagreements
What does
with
that
the
mean?
ownership or Vrabel or a trade he made. This guy is
Talking more
into some stuff. Okay.
Tone.
Those were the days 2 years ago. Amy Adams Strunk flew off the handle, fired John Robinson. I still love telling this story that I got a call like maybe 10 minutes before Ian Rappaport broke the story. And they were like, yo, John Robinson just got fired. And I said, no, he did not. Got fired? And he's like, yeah, dude, I'm pretty sure John Robinson got fired. So I called a couple of people with the Titans, because, again, when he announced to the world that the general manager's getting fired, probably need to have somebody give you a thumbs up, thumbs down. And everybody's phones went right to voicemail. And Ian, I texted the group, me, you, Caroline, and Chase.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, boys, we may have a situation today. And I remember somebody like Caroline or you, Ian, said, well, what are we talking about? And I said, John Robinson. And Chase texts back 5 minutes later, oh, my God, they fired his ass. And it was like, yeah. At that point, I think I had something I was supposed to do that day. And I was like, yeah, nah, we're not doing this. And I remember I texted Trevor and I was like, Trevor, they just fired John Robinson. We'll talk later this week. This is, and we did a 5-hour show that day. And the Titans have sucked ever since, 9-25. And I wonder if all this power playing between Robinson and throw Malarkey in there too, because Robinson really power played Malarkey. One thing that's crazy is if Robinson had just kept Malarkey, then Malarkey would have been the scapegoat for everything bad that would have happened. But he couldn't do it. And then, with Vrabel, I'm sure he backstabbed Robinson some way. I've heard that there's no bad blood between them. But I'm sure Vrabel. Yeah, it's Vrabel. And so, hey, once Robinson was gone, now all of a sudden Vrabel was the one people were taking aim at. And now when it comes to the terribleness of this organization, it goes right to Amy every time. I mean, we can get mad about Rand saying the ball didn't bounce their way, but I think we all know, hey, that's an Amy decision. Amy hired Rand. Amy was the one who fired John. Amy was the one who sat down with Mike Keith and said the fans deserve better. Amy said. So, again, maybe sometimes you're better off not firing the unpopular person because then they take the bullets for you. Phone lines on a Fireball Hot Take Friday driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. John is in Nashville. As we're waiting patiently, he's going to kick us off today. John, go ahead. John. Oh, John, you're killing me. And it said in the box, it said Robinson mistakes. So let me say this. Every time, we talked about this yesterday, about the fact that, hey, Treylon Burks out for the year with a knee injury, because I have a feeling I know where this mistakes thing is going. Treylon Burks out for the year with a knee injury. And I'm like, and everyone's like, oh, see, another first round pick. Robinson stinks. I mean, that's bad. Like, that's bad when it comes to Farley, Wilson, and Burks. That's bad. But the team that just beat you by 3 touchdowns is the same thing. So when it comes to, well, he made all these mistakes and it's all his fault, and this is why this team's so bad. And I thought Caroline said it best. And of all the John Robinson rhetoric, Caroline has hit 2 nails on the head that have stuck with me. The first is, hey, Rand Carthon, when he went out and acquired a L'Jarius Sneed, I mean, he was doing exactly what John Robinson did that got him fired. The investing in injured players. Oh, no, Clowney, he'll be different with us. And then the one she said, which was, if you're mad about Julio Jones, or you're mad about Vic Beasley, or you're mad about Isaiah Wilson, or you're mad about whatever, why did you give him a contract extension after the 2021 season when they had the number 1 seed in the AFC playoffs? Were you not mad about those things then? That doesn't make any sense. So when it comes to Robinson, the only things you can lay at his feet that you would say, okay, you're firing him for this would be Farley and Radens, because those things weren't official. Those guys weren't total busts at that point. They were still saying there's a chance they could be good. And obviously they were not. And Burks, like the A.J. Brown trade. But again, I've been told it was not the A.J. Brown trade that is what got John Robinson fired, and that to this day, Amy does not, I mean, it's hard to say you don't disagree with the decision, but to this day, Amy does not look at that as something she wouldn't have done. And because of that, again, I mean, with Robinson, it wasn't perfect. It never was. But you won. It was fun. You won games. We used to do topics about the game that was about to be played. Nobody wants to preview this Jacksonville game. We used to do those things. All right, back to your phones. Chip says, Jared, you are 100% correct on the Titans. Her speaking makes the Titans look like idiots. I mean, I said that last year when she was like, we have a good young quarterback. And I was like, yeah, nobody else thinks that. And like, he might be a good young quarterback, but the consensus around the league is not, hey, Tennessee, good young quarterback. That's where that's what people were thinking about the Chargers. Good young quarterback. I want that job. I do wonder when Jacksonville comes open, will people say, good young quarterback, I want that job? There's a chance there may be some people that do that. One texter says, what you're saying is not true. Coach Vrabel is a good coach and a good man. Well, did I ever say that Mike Vrabel wasn't a good coach? Now, again, the character assassination of Vrabel that I am being accused of in that text. I just said, do you think there's a chance that Mike Vrabel threw John Robinson under the bus? That Mike Vrabel wanted it to be all about him? I mean, Mike Vrabel went to Amy Absher. Mike Vrabel's experience in the NFL is as a player, which, again, that's great, but being a player doesn't necessarily mean that you should be GM. Again, God bless Chris Sanders, crazy Uncle Chris, but he has basically as much experience as Mike Vrabel playing. Do you want Chris Sanders to be GM of the Titans? Although that would be something, Ian. I mean, that would be fun. But again, so he has experience as a player. Fine. Then he had 2 years, 3 years as an assistant at Ohio State, 3 years as an assistant with the Texans, and head coach for 5 years. And he went to Amy and was like, I think I should be GM too. Because that's Mike Vrabel. He's arrogant. And if you don't think Mike Vrabel is arrogant, then you do not get Mike Vrabel. That's the problem. One texter says, can we please move on from the John Robinson and Vrabel talk, please? First of all, we are remembering the 2-year anniversary of when I believe Amy Adams Strunk drove the car off the road. This, again, was a team that was winning. In 2016, they had a winning record. In 2017, they had a winning record. In 2018, they had a winning record. In 2019, they had a winning record. In 2020, they had a winning record. In 2021, they had a winning record. And in 2022, when they fired John Robinson 2 years ago to the day, guess what? Ding, 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 ding. They had a winning record. You don't want to talk about this because it's not fun to talk about the fact that they are 9-25 and one game better than the Carolina Panthers since they fired John Robinson. Again, the day that she took the car off the road. You're sitting here, what do you want me to talk about? You want me to talk about this terrible team that has a 0.2% chance of making the playoffs? Is that what you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about whether we should fire this general manager or this coach? Because by the standards that she held the last general manager to, these guys should have been fired weeks ago. But again, I guess it's not the same standards anymore. They've effectively lowered the bar. You want to talk about this Jacksonville game? 2-10 Jacksonville visiting 3-9 Tennessee. Get your tickets right now. What's the get-in price for the game on Sunday? What do we think? $6? $4? I gotta, if I pull up StubHub, I gotta download the app, which just drives me crazy. But let's pull it up. What do you want to talk about? What about the Titans? See, what I'm talking about when it comes to the Titans is why you're in the mess you're in now. And the only way to get out of it is for the person that is responsible for it to look in the mirror and realize she doesn't know what she's doing. And the only way that people understand something like this is if you say, hey, look at that mistake you made 2 years ago to the day. You thought your organization was teetering and you were like, I don't trust this guy anymore. I can do it better. And all they've done is worse. It was a terrible decision the day they did it. It was a terrible decision. It ruined that season and any chance you had of making the playoffs. And again, in the NFL playoffs, anything's possible, especially with Vrabel. So, again, I know, oh, please, oh, no, let's not talk about this anymore. Let's talk about the team right now. Okay, coach kind of stinks. GM sucks. President of football operations has an AI cancer curing model that detects injuries that led them to L'Jarius Sneed. Nobody wants to go to the game Sunday.
Looks
Nobody
like you can get
is
in
going
for
to the game Sunday.
$7.
Go ahead, give it to me.
$7.
That's a little high.
Tickets as low as $7 according to the ESPN app here.
I was thinking it might be like $3 to get into the game Sunday. So, I mean, again, you guys want to say, well, let's talk about something else. Why? Because I'm trying to figure out how we make the Titans a good football team. That's what I'm worried about. 615-737-1025. More of your phones. Stillman and Company, 1025 the game. Let's talk Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love my friends at Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. They take great care of my home, and I am promising you they will do the exact same for you. Hiller's Cash for the Holidays promotion is back, and they're giving away cash for the holidays with select purchases. Get a $500 Visa gift card when you buy select new HVAC systems or a new whole home generator. Get $250 Visa gift card when you buy a new tankless water heater. These deals are only available until the end of the year, so schedule today by visiting happyhiller.com. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. That's Hiller. Call the Happy Fish Truck today.
I saw on social media that, oh, Mike gave Amy an ultimatum. That is just so false. That it never happened. People that say that don't know Mike Vrabel. That would not be something he would say or do. And he actually had a great relationship with John. So I want to put that to rest right now.
So that's an oldie but a goodie from 2 years ago when they fired John Robinson. I saw on social media, people said Mike gave Amy an ultimatum. The great Mike Vrabel would never do that, who, by the way, I'll be firing in a year from now. The great Mike Vrabel would never do that. By the way, Ian, I don't know if I just speak for me or if I speak for this entire show, but isn't the first part of that cut a little alarming? Play that cut again. The very first part of this, I think might be a little alarming and probably some of the problem with the Titans.
I saw on social media that...
Stop! Get off social media if you own the team. Social media? Could you imagine if I listened to social media? All social media ever does is tell me that I'm fat and suck. If all I ever did was listen to social media, I'd be miserable. Though I have had a little bit of a miserable stretch here. But again, like that, what? Oh my goodness gracious. All right, I promised phone, so here we go. 615-737-1025. Jordan says, Jared, I hope you're wrong about the owner and what she did and when she did it. Again, my theory was she wanted to fire John, and the AJ game was the excuse. And she knew if she didn't take it, again, as out of the freaking box as that was, to fire him in the middle of the season when they were 7-5 and in first place, if she didn't do it right then, she wouldn't have been able to do it because they were going to win the division, and then he would have won 3 divisions in a row, and he would have been in the playoffs 4 years. Or you cannot fire a general manager after that, so she took it. And Jordan says, Jared, I hope you're wrong about the owner and what she did and when she did it. If you're right, then the Titans are doomed until they luck into drafting Tom Brady or hiring Andy Reid, because no incompetent owner will intentionally get those kind of individuals. The sad part is what you're saying makes total sense, and even if you're right, there were still better ways to handle it. My thing is, if you were going to fire him in December, like, why'd you give him an extension in January? And what changed? That's like, I'm going to say something that I want everybody to hear. If you're thinking about giving somebody a Christmas gift, and let's say it's something like, because these are always good, like future things, like a summer vacation. If you're thinking of giving your significant other a summer vacation for Christmas, you better be sure you're going to be with that person come the summer. Because the last thing you want to do, although I guess maybe some people are okay with this, the last thing you want to do is say, hey, we're going on a cruise in June, and a month later break up. And that's what Amy Adams Strunk did right there. Like so again, that's what I can't understand. I mean, I think I know what all this is about, but like, again, it's about power. It's about Vrabel wanted his, John wanted his, Amy wanted hers, everybody wanted their say, they wanted their stamp, they wanted it done their way, and this is how you get what you get. And this is why, again, the only extended time in my lifetime that this organization has been run properly was when Floyd Reese was the general manager, and I would even argue maybe to a fault. Like Floyd he ran the organization the way that a good organization is run, valuing loyalty and, plans and development. And when Floyd Reese was the general manager, this thing was run like the Ravens, the Steelers, tough physical teams, year in and year out, very competitive. The down years where they dipped, they didn't fire the coach. Floyd probably should have fired the coach, but they didn't fire the coach. And when Floyd ran the team, again, they were on the uptick on his way out. Paul Koharski put out a 25th anniversary team, and 20% of the guys on that team were either signed as a free agent by Floyd in his last couple of years or drafted by Floyd in his last couple of years. But other than that, it's been all just power struggles and Bud Adams with his hand in the cookie jar and Tommy Smith. And it's just, guys, even the Malarkey Robinson thing, like that's beneath what the Titans should be. That's what a bad organization does, where the GM says, yeah, I can go along with this coach. And then the coach outperforms the expectations and he fires him anyways because he's not his guy. And Robinson wasn't perfect either. But again, it's all this, extra finagling that is the problem. Which is why I've been talking about, the Rick Spielmans and the Mark Dominics and the Thomas Dimitrovs and like those former general managers to come in here and run this team because those guys have experience. They know how to run an organization. And because what I want Amy to hire that guy, hire Thomas Dimitrov, hire Rick Spielman, and go away for 3 years and sit up in the box and let him work. And I don't know if she can do that. One texter says, based off of what you know about Amy, do you think it's likely she's looking at the season this year with a shoot, I screwed up mentality, or do you think she blames others? I couldn't tell you. I could not tell you what she thinks. I mean, again, when it comes to the Titans, they're not very accountable. Like we can complain about the Predators and the losing and all we want with that and what they're going to do about the coach. But you know where Barry Trotz stands because Barry Trotz comes on this program every Tuesday at 5:00. Sean Henry was on the midday show with Chase and Joe earlier today talking about the team and how they stink right now. With the Titans, I mean, when's the last time you heard somebody over there that's in a position of power talk other than Rand's 5 Q&A with the Tennessean in which he exclaimed the reason they lost to Detroit was because the ball didn't bounce their way? When's the last time you heard Amy talk? The last time Amy talked, she was talking about Lombardi trophies and how she has high expectations and the fans this and but you see what I'm saying? So you're going to ask me what I know about how Amy feels. The only thing I knew was last year when they said Vrabel was coming back, and I said, I don't believe it just because they lie. And they lied about Malarkey. David says, I'm not going to read that. 615-737-1025. Boy, a lot of people want to weigh in on this today. 615-737-1025. And here's kind of the crazy thing, or at least I think it's crazy, when it comes to the Titans about where they sit, with this game and what's in the best interest of the team, but also what's best in the best interest of the people that are running it, keeping their jobs. We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game. Let's talk Fireball whiskey. Nothing goes down as smooth or tastes as great as ice cold Fireball cinnamon whiskey. I absolutely love Fireball. Why? Because it tastes so great. And there's no better way to start your weekend or your holiday party than with ice cold Fireball cinnamon whiskey. Ignite the night. Please do it responsibly and be 21 years or older to enjoy. That's Fireball cinnamon whiskey. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Ian, we've got the distinguished gentleman today all worked up in the YouTube chat.
Oh, boy.
I mean, he is the biggest Ran Carthon supporter. You know, there were others earlier. There was Chef Ran. And Chef Ran, by the way, has left this program. He was on Robbie and Retro's YouTube chat this morning.
Okay, well, good. Glad he's still around somewhere.
Wait, why does Chef Ran not roll through this show anymore? Or do you think he has a different name that he comments on this one?
Well, maybe. Maybe new work schedule. Who knows?
So, that being said, you know, if you are a Boo-Hoo Ran Club member, you will be triggered by today, where we remember that 2 years ago, Amy Adams Strunk hauled off and fired the general manager in the middle of the work week before the Titans played the lowly Jags. So they had a 3-game lead on in December. Lost every game the rest of the season and missed play. Way to go. But there's one thing that I find fascinating about this game. You know, the last 2 years we've had to have discussions around here that we didn't used to have under the previous administration. And that is about tanking. And that is, do we really want the Titans to win these games? Last year, the Titans pulled off a thriller on the road at Miami on Monday Night Football. Granted, the split doubleheader Monday Night Football. But they pulled off the unthinkable, the comeback, the Will Levis down by 14. They went for 2. They got it. They came down the field. They scored. They kicked it. They sacked Tua, and they won the game. And I remember Peyton Manning on the Manning cast said, boy, I tell you, I'm so happy for Will. I remember my rookie year. We were a terrible team, and we played the Jets, but I had a fourth quarter comeback, and I just knew I could do it, and it was big for my confidence. And I said, yeah. And that's big for Levis, and that's big for Levis's confidence, and that's big for the organization's confidence in Levis. But at the end of the day, what did that really get you? And the answer? Nothing. That win didn't get you anything. In fact, well, that win took Joe Alt away from you. You lose that game, you're picking high enough, you can take Joe Alt over J.C. Latham. And no disrespect to J.C. Latham, but he's not Joe Alt. So you got nothing by winning that game. I remember the last game of the year in 2015 when we knew everything was gone at the end of the year. We knew Webster was out. We knew that they had an interim coach. We knew that they were hitting the reset button. And I remember doing the pregame show with Derek and Floyd. And I said, I want them to lose this week. And they said, why? There's not a big quarterback in this. I said, because when you have the number 1 pick, you have every option. You can take the best player. If there's a Jerry Rice in that draft, you can take him before anybody else. Or you can trade out of that pick and get the most value. And we know about the trade they made with the Rams that led to Jack Conklin and Derrick Henry and Jonnu Smith and Corey Davis, etc. So when it comes to the current administration of the Titans, I almost think that they need to win. Carthon, Brinker, who knows about Callahan? I mean, I don't think they'll fire Callahan, but I also don't know if Amy's really going to fire a GM and she's going to turn around and stick him, with hey, you got to work with Brian Callahan, and see the Adam Peters of the world drop out for a second time in 3 years. So they need to win. Like, they need to win games down the stretch, especially against the dregs, the Jacksonvilles. Like, they need to win in order to get any confidence that they know what they're doing. And I mean any confidence. And yet, at the same time, what's in the best long-term interest of the Titans? And it's hard for me, after what's happened over the last couple of years, it's hard for me not to think that losing right now is probably in the best long-term interest of the Titans. Outside of J.C. Latham, Jeffrey Simmons, Jarvis Brownlee, Tavondre Sweat, and maybe Dylan Radins, I'm not sure there are a lot of players on this team that when you become good again, will still be on the team. And even with Sweat, I mean, I think he'll be on the team. I'm just not sure that it's worth the 38th overall pick in the draft. But outside of that, like when this team's good, Calvin Ridley's not going to be on this team anymore. Like, he's got a shelf life of 1 or 2 more years, and then they're moving on. And so when I hear things like, well, but the players care, I'm like, that's great, but it does. What do I give a rat's ass what Tyler Boyd thinks? Again, it doesn't matter. And so I'm looking at this game in particular, but really the rest of the season. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, if I own the team, this wouldn't matter because I'm firing everybody at the end of the year anyway. I wanted to clean house last year. You guys told me I couldn't. You guys told me I was racist because I wanted to clean house at the end of the year and start over. Well, now I'm cleaning house. But I don't know what they'll do. And I don't think she wants to do it. And I'll tell you why I don't think she wants to do it. Because, again, what was the whole first hour today? Remembering that 2 years ago, she fired John Robinson 2 years ago today. And it's like, boy, I tell you, what a bad decision that's been. You're 9-25 ever since that happened. And she knows that if she cleans house, they will throw it all out there and it'll be all at her feet. And she probably doesn't want that. She doesn't want people to think she doesn't know what she's doing. She doesn't want to have to admit that she doesn't know what she's doing. She don't want to do that. So she probably wants them to win so she can keep everybody, so she can justify it to her fans and her PSL ticket holders and everybody else. But again, does that hurt the team if you end up picking 11th? Again, a couple years ago, if you had the 7th overall pick instead of the 11th overall pick, you could have drafted Jalen Carter. You could have drafted Darnell Wright, a right tackle. Instead, you drafted a guard. It's crazy to me, again, the dichotomy between everybody will say, well, the players care. Again, the players do not worry about the future of the Titans. They don't care. But did it hurt the Washington Commanders that they lost all those games down the stretch last year and they were able to draft Jaden Daniels? What would have happened if, and I don't know what happened when they played the Giants last year, but I'm sure the Giants won since the Giants picked behind them. What would have happened if the Commanders had won all those games and the Giants hadn't? And so the Commanders had Malik Neighbors, but the Giants drafted Jaden Daniels. How good's Washington with Sam Howell at quarterback? Or Desmond Ridder? Or whomever? Marcus? So what's in the best interest of them, I'm not convinced is in the best interest of the organization. And that's a really tough spot to be in. You know, Doug Marrone had to suck it up and play Mike Glennon at quarterback over Gardner Minshew in 2020 because his ownership was actively tanking for Trevor Lawrence. Didn't help him keep his job. But that's where we are when it comes to the Titans. And I know, only losers talk about tanking. Yeah. Boy, it'd be nice to have Jaden Daniels, wouldn't it? 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. Mutt says, I wonder if John Robinson gave Mike Mularkey more time, if that would have brought John Robinson more time. I don't know. It's hard. I mean, they did win with Vrabel, so it's hard to look at that and throw it back. One texter says, I agree with you, but the problem, especially when it comes to the fans, is they don't have patience. They look at the current season and maybe next season, and it takes time and years to build and develop a good, deep winning roster. I'm not so sure about that, texter, because, again, the Washington Commanders are picking second last year, and they beat you by 3 touchdowns on Sunday. Corey Curtis, News 2, joins us next here on the program. Stillman and Company. By the way, be sure to join me, Chris, and D. Mace live out of JBJ's downtown this Sunday for the award-winning pregame show. Little early exit this week. We'll be on from 9:30 to 11 as we get you set for the Titans and the Jags. The award-winning pregame show is presented by Parman Tractor and Equipment, Sundeck Nashville, Sloan's Motorcycle ATV, and award-winning Blue Note Juke Joint and Blue Note Crossroads Bourbon. Stillman and Company on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. The Predators lost what I think might have been their single worst loss of what has been a disastrous season. And so we will discuss that coming up at 3:30. I know Adam Vingan is sitting by his radio with bated breath, waiting for that to happen. But, I mean, I hate to say it, good news for the Predators. They suffered what I believe was their most embarrassing loss of the season. On the 2-year anniversary, or the eve of the 2-year anniversary of Amy Adams' strong decision to fire John Robinson at 7-5 and in first place in the middle of the season. And while things weren't trending in the right direction, they were trending towards a third straight division title. She fired him. They got clobbered by Jacksonville that week. And up and to that point, according to the Titans media notes, the Titans had an 8.67 winning percentage, 13-2 in division games from 2020 to 2022, best in the NFL. And they are 2-9 against the AFC South since then. They are 9-25 since that fateful Tuesday in 2022. And it should be noted the Carolina Panthers are 8-6 over the same stretch. Corey Curtis, News 2, joins us now on the program. Corey, we start there. 2 years ago, they fired John Robinson. And I ask you this question. In any way, is the organization in a better place today than it was then?
Well, building's nicer. Practice fields are nicer.
Didn't they do that while he was there?
It's nicer. Okay. I would say, the roster build is continued in its downward path in a lot of regards. So it just kind of stayed consistent with his last 3 years. So I wouldn't, I mean, it's hard to look at them now and say, yes, but if Will Levis to be something, then they are, but that's still an unanswered question.
Do you feel like Will Levis is something?
Hello?
Do you think that Will Levis is, you said, hey, if Will Levis turns out to be something, that could be a positive. Do you think that's what's going to happen?
Well, I think he's trending in the right, just like early in the season when everybody wanted to jump to a conclusion that he was no good, I said the sample size wasn't big enough. I needed to see the whole season. And, now that I've seen some good games, I continue to say, all right, those are good games, but I still need to see the rest of the season. If he can continue to string them along like he's done, then I'm excited to see what Will can do next year.
So I guess I'm a little torn. I mean, he is better than he was at the beginning of the year, but they're 1-3 in the ball games since he has, taken his head out of his own ass. And he still threw a pick 6 in the Texans game. And he still, he completed under 50% of his passes the other day against Washington. Granted, they dropped the ball. And it's just like, okay, that's great. What's he doing to win them games, Corey?
Well, I mean, they do need to score more points. There's no doubt about that. The first step in winning games is to not lose games, okay? And cutting down on the turnovers and cutting down on the sacks is a big step in that regard. I think getting Alvin Ridley more involved in the offense is a step. Winning the games, him throwing the ball down the field again is a step towards winning the games. I mean, look, I cannot pin last week on him. They were down 28-0 before he could do anything, and he had nothing to do with that. I mean, the rest of the team imploded, and he did get them back within 28-13. Does he need to do more? Yeah, he certainly does need to do more. But again, these young quarterbacks to be finished products when they're year 1, year 2 in the league, whether it be Will Levis, Caleb Williams, or Anthony Sin or whoever. And I think we all have to be okay with giving them some time to grow. When Tom Brady and Ben Roethlisberger came into the league, how many passes were they throwing their first couple of years in the league in a game? 21, 22? They weren't asked to go out and do it. And I think we're asking a lot of these young guys right now. So when you ask what can Will Levis do, he can get better. And what am I seeing right now? He's getting better. That's all I can ask for.
How pivotal, Corey Curtis, News 2 is with us on the program. How pivotal do you think this Jacksonville game is for Levis and for the front office and everything else?
I think it's a big game. I mean, they're a bad team. They've lost 9 in a row on the road. They bring in Mac Jones in here at quarterback. The Titans need to not give this one away, and they need to win a football game to give themselves, some positive stuff to build off moving forward. It's also the 32nd ranked pass defense in the league. The offensive line needs to produce, and Levis needs to have a big day. If he throws for 130 yards against this defense, that is not going to look very good for him.
Corey, do you think that right now, the way things stand, I mean, again, 2 years ago, 7-5 in first place in the division wasn't good enough. They've been terrible ever since. Do you think that Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker and this, collaboration, because I don't think it is a coincidence that they've used that word a gazillion times. And if I had to say what got Robinson fired, that word might, or the lack of it, might have been a big part. But do you think these guys are on the hot seat right now, or do you think that Amy is its free pass and they'll be back next year?
Well, I don't think Rand's got a free pass. I think that there's a lot that goes into that decision, and so it'll be interesting to see where they are. I mean, we've seen some obvious missteps season, with the way they address special teams going into the year. Obviously, the way they addressed right tackle going into the year. We've seen missteps, with what they've decided to do. You've had some free agent money that's been spent that hasn't produced at this point. That's going to happen from time to time because some of it has worked out, some of it hasn't worked out. But I mean, I think there's plenty of stuff, to look at and say, is she happy? Is she unhappy? I mean, nobody can be happy with 3-9. I mean, nobody can be happy with that. So, I think collaboration, and I think, what's the working environment between, the people in the front office.
Corey, I'm going to put you on the spot.
That can all be important.
I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
If you own the team, would you bring this administration back next year?
One of my problems is I have not been able to get to know Rand Carthon at all. And, you could say that's my job. For whatever reason, I've had a hard time talking to him, getting time with him. I guess I probably don't travel as much as everybody else does. And so it's harder for me to make that decision because I'm not in it as much. But I always say, if you've got mind, if I had someone better in mind, I would not be afraid to make a move. But I'd have to have somebody better in mind first.
By the way, be careful though, Corey. You say things like that, like, hey, I don't really, I haven't been able to get to know the GM. I've had a hard time trying to get to know the GM. People will say that is you feeling like, that Rand Carthon let you. Because my thing was when I had that Byard scoop about, hey, Byard said like, hey, go ahead and release me. I had that scoop. I called the Titans. I said, hey, I want Rand Carthon to call me. And Rand didn't call me. And I'm like, that's the GM's job. And people have turned that into Jared was butthurt that Rand Carthon didn't call him back. And that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it's the GM's job to be in touch with the media about critical stuff.
Well, I mean, he's been accessible to some people more than he's been to others. And maybe I can work harder to push that relationship. And I guess, with Floyd and Rustin and J-Rob, and even Mike Reinfeldt, I didn't have to work that hard. And so maybe that's on me. I don't always understand everybody, and he's only been here 2 years. So again, maybe it's on me. I think he certainly could make himself more accessible, certainly when they make big decisions. So I'm not hurt. I'm not hurt by it at all. I'm just telling you, I just don't know him that well. I mean, I know Brian Callahan pretty well at this point. Working on the sideline helps with that regard for the preseason. I got more time with him. But it's, more about how guys think when you get to talk to them off camera and you get a better idea than just what they say in front of the microphone.
By the way, somebody texted in and said, who does know Rand Carthon? Does Amy even know that much about him? I mean, I think there is an accountability issue with the Titans right now. And I'm not just talking about Rand. I think Amy's a part of that too. When it comes to, hey, you guys checked every box this offseason, and all we've heard is the ball didn't bounce your way in a 5 Q&A in the paper, but make of that what you will. Corey, what's your hot take this week for a Fireball Hot Take Friday?
just because somebody gave me such a hard time for so long, I'm just going to bring up that over the last 4 games, Will Levis is averaging 240 passing yards a game, which comes out to 4,100 yards for the season over 17 games.
Oh, well, if you discredit the first 15 games, yeah, you're right. Hey, you're right on the way, Corey.
Okay, well, you know what? Then let's do this. You're going to discredit John Robinson's last 3 drafts since the first ones were good. So I'm going to discredit Will's first 4 games since they were bad and just hang on to what was good.
All I know is I saw John Robinson's drafted quarterback come in here and beat the crap out of the Titans. I see Elijah Molden and Christian Fulton are starting for the Chargers. I mean, maybe all these guys don't suck that bad.
You want Christian Fulton back?
I want Molden back.
I want Molden back too. That was one of their bad decisions. Him and Hassan Haskins both. Those were short-sighted bad decisions.
I mean, but what happens is those guys aren't here, so everyone's like, oh, they all suck. And I'm like, they don't all suck.
They don't all suck. They don't all suck. Fulton couldn't stay healthy, and Fulton was very inconsistent. Was it year 2 for Fulton where he was really good?
I think so. I think that was the year that they had the 1 seed.
Yeah, he was really good. He wasn't consistent, couldn't stay healthy. I understood why they didn't keep him. But look, I mean, there's just no way you can look at Isaiah Wilson, Caleb Farley, and Traylon Burks in the first round in back-to-back drafts and be like, that was just bad luck.
No. I mean, look, was he doing a good job at the time they got fired? That's debatable. But again, the results are what these things are usually judged by. Let me ask you this question on your way out the door.
This is the most important thing, okay? This is the most important thing. Just because one guy gets fired doesn't mean that he did better or worse based on what the other person did. And it doesn't make that other person do better or worse based on what they did. You have to judge them for their jobs individually. You can say Randall is failing and say J-Rob failed the last 3 years at the same time. That is okay.
So I want to ask you this on your way out the door, which is, why do you think Amy did what she did when she did it? Again, 7-5 in first place. The trade deadline had already passed. I've been told by people who would know it wasn't about A.J. Brown. Hard to believe when A.J. spanked the goalpost. So why do you believe she chose that moment in time to do what she did?
Well, look, I find it hard to believe not seeing them get whacked in Philadelphia didn't have something to do with it. They also talked about wanting to get started on the process so they'd have their pick of candidates. That's what she said. So we will take her at her word for that. But I do believe emotion had to take some issue with it when you saw the direction you were headed in and you see AJ doing what he's doing in Philadelphia, and you've got a magic bag of beans to show for it.
Corey Curtis, News 2, as always, on our program on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Corey, great stuff. We will talk soon.
Thank you, Jared. Appreciate it. You guys have a great weekend.
Yep. We will take a Titans breather. We have got to get to the disastrous loss of the Predators yesterday and what it means for the coach. And we'll do it next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game.
Final 50 seconds. Marchessault poke check by Jacka. Armia ahead. Offensive zone. He won't miss it. Yoel Armia with the empty net goal with 45 seconds left. And the Preds trail 3-0.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit redundant. Similar story pretty much all season. So there's another chapter in it.
Yeah, it was another chapter. It was a similar story to everything all year, and it came against the worst team in the Eastern Conference. In the Montreal Canadiens. In fact, I think the engineer in Montreal who was working the broadcast right there, you couldn't even hear Max on the play-by-play call. He probably has the crowd mic turned up so loud because they've had nothing to cheer about this year in Montreal, so that when they actually had something to cheer about, Ian, can we get that play-by-play call back? You can't even hear Max on the call.
Marchessault poke check by Jacka. Armia ahead. Offensive zone. He won't miss it.
It's like, Pierre, turn the crowd mic down. What are we doing here? Oh, I'm sorry, but the Montreal, so we Monsieur, we have not had the people that have been able to cheer this year, for whatever that's worth. But enough funny business. Time to get down to the facts. That was the worst loss in what has been an unmitigated disaster of a season. The Predators are dead last in wins with 7 in the NHL. Their goal differential is the worst in the Western Conference at -22. This was a team that was supposed to compete for the Stanley Cup. And this team's not going to make the playoffs. So with that, I've tried as long as I could. I have. And I have a reputation, which I don't think is fair, as somebody who's got a quick trigger when it comes to a coach. I had one of my friend's dads tell me last year, she's like, you always want to fire the coach. I said, no. I was like, who do I want to fire? I want to fire John Hines, and I want to fire Rand Carthon and Jerry Stackhouse, and, yeah, the guys that stink. That's who I want to fire. And I feel like I've given Andrew Burnett the benefit of the doubt here. If I owned this team, he'd coach on Saturday against Ottawa, and if he loses, he's out. It's as simple as that. Because I keep waiting. And I hear what Barry Trotz says, because I believe Andrew Burnett is a good coach, and I like Andrew Burnett. And I think Andrew Burnett did a good job last year. But at some point, you have to look at the team and say, what's the coach doing here to make this any better? And when you go on the road and you get blanked by Montreal, who is freaking pathetic, enough is enough. I heard the stat from Vingan. Wasn't it 14 odd man rushes last night to 1? Well, Jared Ryan O'Reilly wasn't it. I don't care. It's Montreal. You should beat Montreal. And you certainly shouldn't have 7 shots midway through the game. You know, I told a friend of mine who is in a position of hiring and firing coaches a couple of years ago before he made some coaching changes. I said, I've always believed on the radio that if you're going to say somebody needs to be fired, you better truly be willing to live with that reality. Because it's easy to say, fire this guy, fire that guy, wins 4 in a row. Say, okay, don't fire him. It's easy to do that. But you can't do that if you're the GM or if you're the owner, or you can't unfire the coach. Amy can't renege on her decision to fire Mike Vrabel and say, well, you know, I shouldn't have done that. Let's bring him back. You can't do that. And I don't think that's fair to try to hold the people accountable that make those decisions if you won't be accountable to those decisions yourselves. So I take it seriously. And I also said to him, I go, there's going to be a point in time where you're watching the game, where you're sitting in the box and you're seeing what's happening in front of you, and you just say, that's enough. And for me, when they had 7 shots on goal last night, midway through the game at Montreal, I said, that's enough. I gave them the start of the year, the 0-5 start, said, okay, they'll find a way to work out of it. They got to 3-5. I said, they'll be fine. Then they started to get sluggish again. I said, they'll be fine. Then they had the road trip that was going to solve all the problems. And they really stunk on that road trip. Well, they got a point in this game, and they got I mean, that's great, but at some point you got to start winning. Then they had last week where every game was the same, a 3-2 loss in overtime. I'm like, all right, this is a big road trip, and they need to sweep the road trip. Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa. Hal Gill saying, you got to take it one game at a time. It's not fair. I'm like, Hal, there's too much that's happened this season for me not to be able to say, you've got to sweep the road trip. They lose at Toronto. And I still wasn't there. But Montreal is so bad that at this point, I don't know what the coach is doing to help this. And I don't believe in saying blame the players. I don't believe in all of these guys that had better years last year are having worse years for this team in this system. I don't believe that Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault have forgotten how to play hockey. I don't believe any of that. And if that's the case and Andrew Burnett can't help in a time of crisis, then what's the point of him being the coach? I mean, I'm sorry, but it is what it is. So it's time. Now, the reason why I'm giving him to tomorrow's game is because I'm not firing him in the middle of the road trip, and I'm not going to fire him after they win. But I almost feel certain they're not going to win tomorrow when they play Ottawa. So they get back probably 3 a.m. on Sunday. And at 8 a.m., I'd be having a meeting with Andrew Burnett after they lose to Ottawa, and I'd be firing him. And I would go make Carl Taylor at Milwaukee the interim head coach. I would not do what they did last time, which was fire the coach at 5 o'clock and have a new coach at 6 o'clock. I would not do that. I would wait. I would scour the market. You know, I've had a bunch of people bring up Joel Quenneville's name to me. Morally, I am opposed to Joel Quenneville, and I'm just going to put it out there and tell you right now. And I know sports is about winning and losing. It's not about being a nice guy, but I find that what Joel Quenneville was a part of in Chicago was absolutely reprehensible, and I don't want to win if I got to have people like that as the coach. So I want no part of Joel Quenneville. But that being said, I would bring Carl Taylor up from Milwaukee because I bring up a lot of those players that are already there. And I tell Carl Taylor, keep it simple. Because the rest of this year, the playoffs are gone. And at this point, you know, it might just be better to go get a number 1 pick anyways. But last night's game was kind of the breaking point for me. I'm not going to fire him in the middle of the road trip with a game tomorrow. And I'm not going to fire him after they win. But if they lose tomorrow, which I think is more likely than not that they will, then he's out. And if that's not the case, then I'm sure that with a trip to Dallas and Colorado upcoming, an opportunity will present itself for me to cleanly fire the coach while not in the middle of a road trip. But that's what I would do. I wouldn't fire him today. But after they lose tomorrow, I'd make the move. And there is nothing that I have seen from this team that would make me think that I'm going to regret that decision. And again, I think he's a good coach. But every game, it's the same. They've got no offense, and they've got no answers on how to figure it out. And I'm not going to blame the players. So I feel like I have gone as far as I can go. I think I have been more than fair. I am not doing this, you know, the Willie Donick underlying metrics say they're actually playing better and they're, I mean, look, Chicago wasn't supposed to be good, and they fired their coach yesterday. This is how the league works. Andrew Burnett, if Andrew Burnett gets fired on Sunday morning, he will have gotten more than a fair shake, given the way the league works. Jim Montgomery set an NHL record 2 years ago, and he got fired. He won a playoff series last year, and he got fired. So, I mean, I'm sorry, 7 wins. It is what it is. And so, I mean, look, it'd be great if they get on a heater right now and, you know, I can say, hey, the Ottawa game, it was a stay of execution, and they got on a heater, and they never looked back, and they won the cup. This is not going to happen. So he gets to tomorrow. And then when they lose, it's time to make the change. I don't think they'll do it, But you want to know what I think? You want me to be honest with you? And I'm not going to do this whole Ramon Foster thing where I'm going to plead the fifth because it'll make me uncomfortable to tell you on the radio what I actually think or what I actually did, which I thought was some cowardice stuff from Ramon Foster. Not getting into his Aziz Al-Shaair decision on his radio show. What's the point of you even having a radio show if you're not going to address what you did? Which wasn't a rant I was thinking about going on, but when I saw that Florio article yesterday, I was ashamed. But that's a different discussion. For me, I'm just telling you where I stand, and this is where I stand. Last night was it. So I'll give him till tomorrow because I'm not firing him in the middle of the road trip, but I'm making the change. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number on the program. 615-737-1025. We'll do a segment of reaction to that here on Stillman & Company, 1025 The Game. Do you look back on that and think there may have been a different approach, or are you still pleased with the plan that you set in place and executed?
Well, I think, free agency gets you free players. You don't have to give up assets. It's cash, but it's in cap space. But you get free players, if you will. I felt pretty strongly that this group could use a couple of, game changers, guys that could make a difference, transition us into, I would say the top 9 in terms of building a top 9 team with an identity line in the 4th line. But our young guys would be coming in and sort of starting a little bit lower in the lineup. In my vision, I would have 2 veterans and a young guy, and then next year you have another young guy with a guy who's the second year and an older guy, and transition out that way. So, we're trying to do that a little bit, but at the same time, Andrew's trying to get us back into the playoff mix. And so he's doing what he thinks he needs to do to get as many points, collect points every night if we can.
That was Barry Trotz on our program Tuesday, and they have picked up 0 points, including last night, 0 goals at Montreal, who is awful. They have 7 wins, the worst in the league, and they've lost their last 6 in a row. And I have said, if I own the team and they lose tomorrow at Ottawa, I'm changing the coach. And Adam Vingan's all mad at me because he's like, if you think he should be gone, he should be gone. I'm like, look, I'm not firing him on the road. We're waiting till we get back. Then I can do it Sunday morning, have a team meeting afterwards, say, hey, we've changed the coach. Everybody can get back to work on Monday and get ready for whatever the game is Tuesday. So I hate to say it, but I like Burnett. I think he's a good coach. I think he'll go somewhere else eventually, and he'll coach, and he'll win some games because I think he's a good coach. But they're not improving at all. And they have no answers. And this just constant waiting of, what about this? Or, here's the only way that I think if they lose tomorrow, Trotz can keep Burnett as the coach. And that is if Trotz comes on the show on Tuesday, because that would be before the next game that they play against Calgary. And Trotz puts it all on himself. And he says, Andrew Burnett thought, hey, we need to probably go get a second line center ahead of a Jonathan Marsh or so. I said, no, this is what I want to do. I'm the one that blew it. Put it on me. If Trotz does that and puts it all on himself, not, hey, we all share in the blame, and hey, the players have to this, and if Trotz does that, then I think maybe he could take the bullet for a little bit longer for Burnett, but probably not much longer to make a difference. Your phones are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. One texter says, hey, Jared, didn't the Predators start poorly the year they went to the Cup? The Predators did not have 7 wins in December. That I can promise you. I don't remember exactly how many wins they had in December, but I remember they were on the playoff bubble on January 1st. And even then, it kind of felt like a foregone conclusion they were making the playoffs. They're not on the bubble of the playoffs. They are way, way, way out right now. It's not the same. And for people that would say, well, what about the St. Louis Blues in 2019, last place, and then they got hot and they fired the coach. Justin says, I stopped listening after they let Montreal get a shorthanded goal. The Predators had a young goalie in net, and their power play is supposed to be better, and yet they let them escape and score when they have the advantage. Just incredibly, unbelievably frustrating. They didn't score a 5-on-3 last night. A 5-on-3 with that power play against Montreal. Inexcusable. So I'm sorry. It's time. Skyler says, I think Burnett's a good coach and a likable guy, but change is needed. I agree with all of that. I think he's a good coach, and I like Burnett. I do. Again, everybody's like, if this were the Predators, if this were the Titans, you'd be going crazy. If this were the... No. I feel like I gave the Predators a fair shake. And I feel like I gave Burnett a fair shake. I'm still even giving him a shot to save his job by winning tomorrow. For a day at least. But... it just, plus I also know the way the Predators like to do business. And I think that on a Sunday morning, changing the coach, that's exactly when Titans are having a football game. There's the college championships over the weekend. The playoff will be set Sunday morning. That's when you do that. Like when they fired Laviolette, right as the Titans had beaten the Ravens in the playoff. Or no, I think they had beaten the Patriots before the Ravens game when they changed the coach there. CC says, Jared, I'm with you on not blaming the new players because they are accustomed to playing with more skilled players in different systems. It certainly appears there was a communication error between the GM and the coach. Did Trotz understand the kind of players Brunette needed for his system, but chose the all-star players instead, which has resulted in the disaster that we see on the ice? I don't think it's that. Because we had Burnett on the day that they made those acquisitions, and he was fired up about it. I think that he thought, give me Steven Stamkos on my power play, and we're going to light it up. And it hasn't happened. And so then when it comes to the why it hasn't happened, that's the problem. They don't have the answer. And again, they didn't have the answer to start the year, and I gave them time. But it doesn't look like they're going to find the answer anytime soon, so that's when it's like, okay, maybe we should get somebody else in here. One texter says, if you listen to the coach, it's clear he doesn't have an answer. He's frustrated and seems to be giving up. Thus, the players do the same. Trotz calls him a good young coach. Young to me sounds like he needs more experience. The team Trotz built needs a senior coach, not one that's less experienced. The question I would have is, who is to replace him? So I always think there are good coaches that are available every offseason. That's why I wouldn't rush to go hire a coach. I remember the year that they decided to hang on to John Hines after the sweep against Colorado, and everybody changed their coach. Dallas changed their coach. Winnipeg changed their coach. And I remember all these coaches were available. I'm like, why can't I have one of these coaches? Bruce Cassidy, why can't I have him? Barry Trotz, why can't I have these good coaches? So again, this idea of who's out there now, I'm not necessarily in favor of doing. And I understand that the Blues, Doug Armstrong, was like, no, I want Jim Montgomery, so this is the change I'm making. Fine. I'm going with an interim guy. And it would be Carl Taylor simply because I am bringing up the Kemmels and the Schaefers and he's coaching them at Milwaukee. And so Carl Taylor, here's your shot, knock it out of the park on an interim basis. And then I would be looking at an experienced coach, to come in here next year. That's what I would do. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Burnett's going to pull it out of his ass, win tomorrow, and catch a heater, and we'll say, God, thank God that didn't happen. But that's where it sits right now for me. And if Trotz wants to keep him, then Trotz, in my opinion, has to take full responsibility. Not this shared responsibility, but full responsibility on the show on Tuesday. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Back to football. Coming up next, there is one thing. It's really hard to get excited about this Titans-Jags game where the get-in price is apparently $7. But there is one particular aspect that I am kind of excited about seeing on Sunday, which I want to get to next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Titans and Jags on Sunday. Ian, are you excited for the game?
Thrilled.
Do you want to go to the game?
No, thank you.
Okay. So, I'm not really all that thrilled about this game either, given the fact that both teams absolutely stink. In fact, I'm surprised so many games are bad this week that you're getting the broadcasters you're getting, but it is what it is. And for all of us, we're getting some good games. Like yesterday was a good game. Sunday night, it's the Chargers and the Chiefs in the standalone window. You know, Dallas and Cincinnati, Joe Burrow. I know that they stink, but at least it'll be Joe Burrow rubbing it in Jerry Jones' face. So that might be exciting as well. But there is one little element about Sunday's game that I am actually excited about. And that is, I am excited to watch the quarterback on Sunday and see how he plays. But not your quarterback. Although I am fascinated to see if Levis can continue to improve. But I'm interested in watching their quarterback, Mac Jones. And I'm going to tell you why. Because the general consensus right now is that Mac Jones stinks. But the general consensus this time last year was that Russell Wilson stunk. The general consensus on Sam Darnold that I pushed back against all the time was that he stunk. The consensus on Ryan Tannehill before he showed up here was that he stunk. And yet we come to find out, no, it's just the Jets in Carolina that stink. It's just Miami and Adam Gase. It's not Ryan Tannehill. He doesn't stink. And I'm not convinced that Mac Jones stinks. Mac Jones won the national title at Alabama, in which, yes, he had Devontae Smith and a great team, but he wasn't a passenger on that team. He was a finalist for the Heisman Trophy. As a rookie, he was 10-7 as a starter, completed 68% of his passes, had 22 touchdowns to 13 interceptions, and a quarterback rating of 92.5. So what happened? How could he be good as a rookie? The Patriots made the playoffs Mac Jones' rookie year. So what happened? And I'll tell you what happened. Mac Jones was used in Bill Belichick's I'm smarter than everybody else tour. Because Mac Jones was the rebound guy. Bill was using Mac Jones to try to prove to himself and to everybody else his own value after Tom Brady had gone to Tampa and won a Super Bowl. The old saying is, or the story is, or the report is, or whatever you want to call it, I think it was, who's that guy that Seth Wickersham? It was a Seth Wickersham story that when the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl, Gisele Bündchen, who was then Tom Brady's wife, put her arms around Brady and said, what else do you have to prove? Point being, you did it without Bill. Well, Bill is a very prideful guy. And there is no doubt Bill did not take that very well. Because Bill was the one that had told Kraft, hey, let's move on from Brady. Let's go to Garoppolo. Let's go get the next Brady, etc. So they draft Mac Jones. And in a lot of ways, there were some Brady-like qualities to Mac Jones. He's a winner. He was a leader. He's a little out of shape at the beginning. But once Brady won that Super Bowl and then Bill drafted Mac Jones and Mac Jones had success as a rookie, now all of a sudden it became, okay, this is Bill's answer to Tom. And because Bill's answer to Tom has to be that Bill is smarter than everybody else, Belichick did what only a moron would do. After Josh McDaniels left to go take the head coaching job in Vegas, by making Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, a defensive coach and a special teams coach, the offensive coaching staff for Mac Jones. He went from having coordinators like Steve Sarkisian and Josh McDaniels, who were offensive play callers, to having a guy who was a defensive coach whose last defensive coaching performance was the disastrous Super Bowl against Philadelphia with Malcolm Butler on the bench. And he was coaching offense. And again, Bill knew better. But Bill couldn't help himself because, again, Bill was trying to have to prove that I'm not Ted Marchibroda. I'm Bill Belichick. Because no matter what is said, we all look at Bill and we say 6 Super Bowls with Brady, but it was a disaster without Brady. Again, the story is Tom and Bill. The collateral damage, in my opinion, was Mac. And so Mac Jones was the guy that was supposed to save Bill Belichick, but Bill Belichick gave him a defensive coach to coach him on offense. And it got toxic between Bill and Kraft and the media, and I've worked up there. And Jones and Bill O'Brien and everything. They drafted him a receiver in the second round, Tyquan Thornton. He sucks. I mean, it's not like Drake May, and I like Drake May. Like that game Drake May played here, I thought Drake May looked pretty good. It's not like Drake May's winning a lot of games with that team. So now Mac Jones has been released of the pressure of being a first-round draft choice, of being the heir apparent to Tom Brady, of being under Bill Belichick's hand and his defensive buddy system coaching him on offense. Granted, he doesn't have Bill Walsh coaching him and Doug Peterson, but it's still different. The pressure's off Mac Jones. Now, yeah, of course, Mac Jones is auditioning for 31 other clubs. And really, probably 32, because he might be auditioning for Jacksonville a little bit. Who knows? I mean, Lawrence is their guy. But again, this is kind of an audition for Mac Jones. And while I know Mac Jones at times looked painful in New England, Will Levis hasn't won 10 games as a starting quarterback in the NFL. Will Levis hasn't been named to a Pro Bowl in the NFL. There's no guarantee Will Levis is going to be the quarterback of this team next year. And that would take the Titans to the reclamation project pile. The same one where Pittsburgh found Russell Wilson. The same one where Minnesota took San Francisco's backup in Sam Darnold right to the playoffs. Again, Ryan Tannehill wasn't even a starter for you. You traded a 4th-round pick for him to be the backup. That's what a reclamation project is. A reclamation project is not taking somebody who's doing well and paying them $55 million. A reclamation project is taking something where, yeah, that stock's down, but I think there might be something there. And I really feel that way when it comes to Mac Jones. He won a national title. He was a first-round draft pick. He made it to the Pro Bowl. He made it to the playoffs. And then Belichick brought in a bozo to coach him. What Mac Jones needed was he needed to be humbled. He needed to be coached. He didn't need to be humiliated. And that's what happened. So I think there might still be a little juice in the orange that is Mac Jones. So I want to see on Sunday what it looks like. And I want to see when it comes to Mac Jones versus Will Levis, I want to see what that looks like. Because right now, we're only comparing Levis to himself. We're only saying, should Levis be the quarterback next year or should he not? Well, he's better than he was at the beginning of the year. Great. But what about versus everybody else who might be available? And Mac Jones will be available. Mac Jones is a free agent at the end of the year. And again, if there is a starting job or a competition job for Mac Jones to take, I can promise you he'll do that before re-upping with Jacksonville, who's paying $55 million to Trevor Lawrence. So while I don't care who wins, I do want to see Sunday. Hey, let's see what this quarterback has because he's on the list. It's not a pretty one. There's the 2 kids in college, Sanders and Ward. I don't know what we think about them, but it looks like they'll be out of your price range anyways. There's Darnold who might get tagged, and I don't want to trade and pay for Darnold. And then it is Justin Fields, Mac Jones, Daniel Jones, or returning with Will Levis. And so I think this is an opportunity for Mac Jones to show what he's got, because I am not convinced that he is not a starting NFL quarterback just yet. But we'll see on Sunday. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. And I do have a rooting interest in the game on Sunday. And I don't care what you think of it. We'll talk about it next. Stillman and Company on 1025 The Game. Let's talk about Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. That's right. Fireball goes down so smooth and it tastes so great. There's no better way. And I mean this, no better way to kick off the start of your weekend than to do so with ice cold Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. I love Fireball Whiskey. Why? Because it goes down so smooth and it tastes so great. Again, there's no better way to start the weekend and to ignite the night than to do so with ice cold Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. Ignite the night. Please do responsibly and be 21 years or older to enjoy. That's Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey.
Oh, Trevor Lawrence is a top-tier quarterback in his league, and he's done a lot of great things. The offense is still pretty much the same in terms of what they do. They have an outstanding combination of running backs. The young receivers are developing. I think they're going to come out and run the same offense that they normally have been running with Trevor in the lineup.
I love how Denard Wilson's like, hey, Trevor Lawrence, man, he's a top-tier quarterback in the league, and he's what they're doing, and and it's like, yeah, but what about the quarterback that you're about to play? Like, what about with Mac Jones? And again, I just want to see if Mac Jones still got some game because he had it. By the way, the distinguished gentleman on the YouTube chat says it's the Patriot love coming out with me talking about I want to see Mac Jones because maybe Mac Jones is the answer at quarterback next year.
The brotherhood, yes.
But isn't Mac Jones, isn't saying that I want to see what Mac Jones has because I think Bill and the Bill Buddy crew screwed him up? Isn't that kind of defeats the whole Patriot brotherhood, right? Because the brotherhood starts with the father.
Half and half. Yeah, half and half maybe. I see where you're going with
Mac
that.
Jones is not part of the brotherhood.
Mac Jones? No, you don't think so?
No. The brotherhood is...
He was excommunicated.
Belichick. Yeah, no, he was never a part of it. The fraternity ended before he got there. The brotherhood was like that era of Patriot from Drew Bledsoe to Bill Belichick to Charlie Weiss to Romeo Crennel to Mike Vrabel to Deion Branch to David Givens to Rob Gronkowski and Rob Ninkovich and that group. So like once you got past Brady, Edelman, Gronk, trying to think of those guys that were there at the end, McCourty, like once you got Slater, once you got past those guys, it was Mac Jones. Like that's like saying Pop Douglas is part of the brotherhood. Pop Douglas is not part of the brotherhood. The brotherhood was those that were there when they were good, not Mac Jones. One texter says, I don't think you can say Bill Belichick did nothing in the 6 Super Bowls. That is an unfair and narrow-minded opinion, as are most on this program. I agree with you on a lot of things, but you are very emotional and blinded when it comes to your Titans at times. Have a good weekend, the texter says, slams the phone down. Here's the deal with Belichick, okay? And I don't know what the answer is. Floyd told me that, and we know the respect Floyd had for Belichick. Floyd told me that when they went to the Super Bowl and they lost to the Giants the second time, the Mario Manningham catch, he said that they got back from Indianapolis on Monday morning, and by Monday afternoon, Bill Belichick was up to speed on a personnel meeting as they were getting ready for the draft. And he said that it was a moment like that that made him realize that Bill Belichick just worked differently and operated differently at a different energy than everybody else. Floyd said, he goes, I saw how hard Bill worked, and I was like, maybe that's the difference between me getting to the divisional round and the AFC title game and a Super Bowl, but not winning the Super Bowl and not winning multiple Super Bowls, and Bill. And I used to believe in that Patriot crap. I subscribed to it. I was like Katie Holmes in the Church of Scientology. Like, I believed that stuff. But as time has gone on, Brady won a Super Bowl with Bruce Arians, like the most disorganized coach in the NFL. And it's hard to argue that it wasn't about Brady. Bill was bad before Brady. Bill was incredible with Brady. And Bill was bad after Brady. Now, do I think Bill was a smart coach in his prime? Sure. And Bill ultimately gets the credit because Bill went and made the gutsiest move by going with Brady over Bledsoe. But let's not get it twisted here and act like the shine isn't off the apple a little bit with Belichick. If the shine wasn't off the apple, Belichick wouldn't be interviewing for North Carolina. He's interviewing for a college job. The Falcons hired Raheem Morris over Bill Belichick. So, again, it's not like I'm saying Bill didn't do anything for the 6 Super Bowls, but I believe that was a real shot to the manhood for Belichick when Brady won the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay. Because the age-old argument of Bill versus Tom was decided. It's crazy. because everybody recognizes that Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback who ever lived, except for some of these people out there that are like, there's no way he's better than Joe Montana. And Chad Withrow will join us at 5 o'clock, and it wouldn't shock me if Chad still thinks Peyton Manning's the best quarterback ever. But if you're older than 30, you know that there was a period of time where everybody was sitting back and arguing about Brady versus Manning. Like, everybody was arguing about it. Everybody was trying to figure out, like, okay, is Brady better or is Manning? Manning gets all the stats, but Brady gets all the wins. Their record against each other is virtually even. I think it's like Manning 9, Brady 8. But after Tom won his Super Bowls, after Peyton retired, it was over. The Atlanta comeback was the moment that the Brady-Manning thing was over. Brady's best quarterback. So you forget about that. But the age-old discussion, Tom and Bill, again, because Tom went to Tampa and won, the answer's Tom. That's it. Mutt says, as a season ticket holder, I am not for tanking. This team has to learn to win and win more often. Forget about the Super Bowl. Be competitive first. Worry about the Super Bowl when you make a playoff game. 2 years running, the stadium is empty in November, and it's so disheartening. 2025 ticket sales will be putrid. This lame duck stadium year is going to be depressing, and the Titans fans looking forward to a new stadium before we even think about a winning record. Let me just say this. I don't think anything that happens this year will have anything to do with next year. Other than maybe, hey, if Levis can get it together and then he's the best option. Like if Levis goes out there on Sunday and outplays Mac Jones, I think that'll be a big step towards Levis winning the job for next year. Or at least Levis keeping the job because the other options aren't good enough, especially if they win and it pushes their draft pick back so that they won't be anywhere in the vicinity of getting a quarterback. But this idea of like, we need to learn how to win, and we're going to do that right now when the special teams are as bad as they are. The special teams on this team are horrendous, and everybody knows it, including the bozo coordinator who knows he's gone at the end of the year. But at the same time, I understand why fans want to win on Sunday. It's your team. It's your pride. It's your team. I get it. I understand. And I think there's something to that. But other than Levis trying to win the job for next year, I'm not sure there's really any tangible benefits to winning this game on Sunday. Speaking of that, I do have a feeling about the game Sunday I want to get to next. We'll do it next. 615-737-1025. It's Stillman and Company on 1025 The Game.
What do you think has to happen the last 5 weeks for you guys to end feeling some positivity to end things?
Yeah, I'm not going to attribute a win-loss column to that. I think it'd just be more how we handle ourselves and the type of ball we put on tape. Like, we obviously don't want anything like we had this past week. And if we can kind of keep building on what we had the couple weeks prior to that and that feel and that cleanliness on offense at least, and cleaning up everything else on the other sides of the ball, like we're gonna be okay. And we know that this is a big opportunity for us to develop as a team and to create and to continue developing our identity. And so we're gonna make sure that we do our best throughout these next few weeks to do that.
Okay, there you go. That was Will Levis talking about what they expect to get out of the rest of the year. And again, I know people are about to get mad about what I'm about to say, but that's okay. I'm rooting for Jacksonville on Sunday. I do not care. I want Jacksonville to win. I don't care if they win by 1 point. I don't care if they win by 45 points. I do not care. But I want Jacksonville to win. And that does not mean that I am not a Titan fan, because there will be some people, the distinguished gentleman on the YouTube chat, there will be some people that say, oh, God, Jared Stillman, you say you're a Titan fan.
Fake fan.
But you're not. Yeah, the real fans cheer for the Titans all the time.
Ride or die.
Let me say this. You couldn't do this show if you didn't love the Titans. One guy talking for 4 hours about the Titans every day, and you're trying to tell me that I couldn't do this, that I could do this show if I didn't love this team. Talk about this god-awful organization for the last 2 years since the owner went Leroy Jenkins and fired the good general manager to hire a terrible general manager. You think you get 4 hours if you didn't love the Titans every day? Free agency, the draft. You think you could do that? Come on now. I mean, I love Buck, but he goes out of his way to be like, I am not a Titans fan. And he'll say things like, I don't want to talk about this terrible team all day, because he doesn't love them. I love them. I love my Titans. And you know that. But I see no tangible benefit to the Titans winning the game Sunday, other than when you're in the car, if you went to the game, which many of you are not, but afterwards saying, hey, we won a football game today. Other than that, I see no tangible benefit.
Building a culture.
A culture of how is winning this game going to build the culture? Congratulations, you beat this horrible Jacksonville
It's a slow build.
team,
It's a
and
slow
Brian
build.
Callahan can go cry about it after the game. Like it was like the New England game. What did the New England game prove? You got smoked by Buffalo. You got smoked by Detroit. You beat New England in overtime at home by 3 points, and now New England's got a higher draft pick, and you're picking 7th. And Brian Callahan cried his tears after the game, and I don't even know who they played the week after that, but I'm pretty sure they got their ass beat. Who'd they play after the Patriots, Ian?
Who, the Titans?
Yeah.
The Chargers.
They got their ass beat. You see what I'm saying? It didn't mean anything. And that's the same with this. And for the whole idea of, winning a game, that's what's important. We got to learn to win, and we got to
prove to Amy. We have to prove to Miss Amy we can win.
Right. No, I don't want that, because you've proven to me, Rand Carthon, Chad Brinker, that you guys are losers. I don't want you here anymore.
Not if we win this week.
I want a high draft pick. I want a new general manager. I want to win. And I will tell you, I cheered for the Colts in 2015 in the last game of the year for you to get the number 1 pick. And because of that number 1 pick, you were able to make a trade that got you Derrick Henry. So I'm just saying, I don't see any positive outcome if the Titans win on Sunday. If the Titans lose on Sunday, Amy's probably more upset wanting a change. You got a better draft pick. Jacksonville, who's set to pick number 1 right now, is not picking number 1. And those things matter more long term. And again, I go back to last year when they won the Miami game, and I said, it's a good thing they won the Miami game. It's a good thing they won the Miami game because it's confidence for Levis and it's confidence for the organization in Levis, and it's good, and I don't want this, and I don't want it, and that cost me Joe Alt. And I want Joe Alt. And so this year, again, I don't know how many great players there are in this draft. I'm not Mel Kiper, at least not yet. But I do feel like, hey, you're better off having a higher pick that you could trade back out of or that you could get an elite player with and having somebody else do the picking. Because if you let Rand do the picking, it's going to be a guard or a run-stuffing defensive tackle instead of, an important position like right tackle. So I'm rooting for Jacksonville. Go Jacksonville. 615-737-1025. One texter says, glad you have come around on this. I was here last year when we beat Miami and ended up losing Joe Alt because of that. Trust me, I know. And I know J.C. Latham's been okay this year, but he's not Joe Alt.
Better than okay.
No, last couple of weeks he's been pretty terrible. In fact, he said you could put the loss on him against Washington. I don't, but
yeah, he had one false start.
But he said you could put the whole loss on him. He did not have a good game, though. In terms of pass protection and everything else, he struggled.
Sure.
One texter says, it's okay to bash your crappy team. We have expectations. We're not emotionally and financially invested. No one gets to tell me what kind of fan I am but me. I'm a fan, the best, and this team is freaking cheeks. By the way, did you know that Joe has, I got the term cheeks from Robbie and Joe because Joe's son kept saying like, oh yeah, they're cheeks. And apparently the new thing is buns.
Mm-hmm. I heard them talking about that.
Like, oh, they're buns.
Mm-hmm.
So like we went from cheeks to buns.
All the tush things you can think of.
I mean, it's like, what's the next one?
I don't know.
Like, oh, they're anus. Is that the next one?
Doesn't have quite the ring to it.
You know what, though? We should say it on this show. Like, the last 2 years of Titans football since Amy Adams Strunk fired John Robinson with their 7-5 in first place. They had won 2 straight divisions, been to the playoffs 3 years in a row, and we're heading for a third. They've been straight anus since then. Can I say anus this much in a row on the radio?
I think it's a medical term, so I think so.
Anus. 615-737-1025. One texter says, I'm a fan of the franchise, not this team only. Better for the franchise to lose and get better. Dustin says, this team is anus. And I don't disagree with that. Again, it has been bad. One texter says,
it does feel like it would be a rough season to go through what we've kind of gone through and pick like 11th overall.
Well, see, that's what gets me is right now, if the draft would be held today, you're picking 7th. Do you know where you picked last year? 7th.
Mm-hmm.
Like what last year's season was more normal.
This feels much worse.
Has been awful. This season has been horrendous.
Well, you've seen the standings. It is especially in the AFC. I don't know if you guys noticed the whole few texts coming in there.
When somebody said a word, I'm definitely not saying on the radio.
Well, the gap in the AFC, I don't know if you've noticed between the playoff teams and the non-playoff teams, way bigger than usual. And there's just weird divide that's not usually the case.
So the thing, I was, because again, Jim Wyatt asked Levis in that cut, like, hey, what are the plans for the next 5 games or whatever? Yeah, we're not gonna put wins on it, but we want to blah blah blah, whatever. And the players want to win the games. Great. I don't care. The players don't care about the 2025 and 2026 Titans. I do. So what I care about, what they care about, are totally different things. But again, so if they win out, they're 8-9. They have a 16% chance of making the playoffs, according to the New York Times, if they win out. Well, the league is so bad. There are so many horse crap teams in this league that I really feel like if you finish 8-9, you'll be picking 17th. If we sit through this god-awful season and they end up picking 17th, that might be a reason to fire somebody in and of itself too. That would be Venus. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number on the program. 615-737-1025. One texter says, this totally validates that you hate Rand because you would never say that about the Preds. I said in the last hour that they should fire the coach if they lose tomorrow. I said that within the last hour. You always protect the Preds. I said yesterday's loss was the most inexcusable and a disastrous season. They should fire the coach if they lose tomorrow. And if they don't, it's just a stay of execution, and then they should probably fire him the next time they lose. Don't give me that. This team's horrible. And I want to lose because I want a new regime because I don't trust this one. Go Jacksonville. 615-737-1025. Remembering, if you will, that 2 years ago to the date, Amy Adams Strunk fired John Robinson at 7-5 in first place in the AFC South. And the Titans are 9-25 since then. Stillman and Company, Fireball Hot Take Friday, 102.5 The Game.
As I've said time and time again, I will never shy away from saying that I have extremely high expectations for our football team and really our entire organization. I expect us to build a team that is going to have sustained success and bring Lombardi trophies to the city of Nashville. I am confident that we have put the right pieces in place to bring that goal to life and build a future that Titan fans will be proud of.
That was Amy Adams Strunk less than a year ago, and I wonder if she feels as confident right now. 2 years ago to the day, with the team sitting in 7-5 and in first place, Amy Adams Strunk pulled the trigger. She fired John Robinson. Now, did she speak about her decision? Of course not. She released a statement that we all received in our emails. But as far as her going on the record, it took her a couple of days. Now, we will get to what she said. But the statement that came out from Amy Adams Strunk 2 years ago to the day, and boy, I tell you, it is so funny in hindsight to read this stuff. Since becoming controlling owner in 2015, my goal has been to raise the standard for what is expected in all facets of our organization. I believe we have made significant progress both on the field and off the field through investments in leadership, personnel, and new ideas. First of all, let me say this. I don't give one rat's ass about off the field. That is your business. I don't care. But, okay, fine, whatever. This progress, she says, includes the core of our business, the football team itself, which is regularly evaluated both by results, wins and losses, and team construction / roster building. Question, how do we vote on team construction? Oh yeah, wins and losses. I am proud of what we have accomplished in my 8 seasons of ownership, but I believe there is more to be done and higher aspirations to be met. Since that point in time, the Tennessee Titans are 9-25. The Carolina Panthers are 8-26 over the same stretch. The difference being a 7-point win at home last year against the Panthers. The Titans are 2-9 against the AFC South. Going into December 6th of 2022, the Titans had an .867 winning percentage, 13-2 against division teams over a 2-year or 2.5-year period. The Titans have 1 win over a playoff team, that being Miami. Now Houston may be number 2. Miami of last year. And Mike Vrabel, the 2021 Coach of the Year, has subsequently been fired. But again, she said then, we need higher standards. All I see are lower standards. And so I do wonder, like, does she, when she evaluates what's happened with this football team, does she evaluate it back to, man, I said that 7-5 and winning the division wasn't good enough. And I said that, the 3 straight years of the playoffs should have been a 4th when I fired John. I knew we were going for a 4th when I fired John. That wasn't good enough. But this is? Like, this is good enough? And we don't know the answer because we don't know if she's going to keep Rand and those guys at the end of the year or not. But you can't sit here and lecture me about, well, the roster construction wasn't good enough, but then tell me that the roster construction is good enough now when there is one young franchise player in place, and that's Latham. And even that, I feel like you could maybe do a little bit better. It's just me, but make of that what you will. One texter in the text line said, she said trophies plural with a crying emoji. Well, you win one, then you want to win another, I guess. I agree. I'll start with one. One texter says, so you don't want them to get better going into next season? I don't think any of that matters. Like, again, did it matter that they beat Miami last year? Did it matter that they beat Jacksonville in the last game of the season? I cheered for the Titans. I went to that game. I cheered for Derrick Henry. I wanted them to win, but it had no bearing on anything. They fired the coach 2 days later. Derrick Henry is a Baltimore Raven now. It didn't mean anything. Winning on Sunday against Jacksonville, it doesn't mean anything. All this other stuff you tell yourselves about, hey, that positive momentum, that will carry us into next season, and that will, but it won't, because nobody will remember it. Last year will be so far gone. The team will be so different next year. We don't even know if the quarterback will be back. So no, none of that matters to me at all. None of it. Tommy says, I agree, lose out. And do what the Bears did with the first pick. Trade out and build so they have more capital the following year as well. Hell, I'm fine to trade back twice and possibly get another first in the following draft. I am always a fan of getting a future first-round pick, because those sometimes turn into some of your best picks. It is so hard on draft night to go from pick number 7 to pick number 3. In fact, I think I want to say the year that San Francisco traded with Miami. Miami went to number 12, and it was 3 first-round picks. And then they went back up to get to 7 to take Jalen Waddle. And I think they traded another first-round pick in that deal. And because of that, that's not where you get the good trades. The good trades, are when you make a deal for a first rounder next year and that pick becomes number 4. That is when you end up making a good trade. When you trade back for a future first, and then all of a sudden it's like the Caleb Williams pick. The distinguished gentleman says that me cheering for Jacksonville is like Louisville cheering for Kentucky. If Louisville had a draft pick at stake, that might change my opinion. One of the sad facts of the Kenny Payne era in Louisville, where we won 12 basketball games, where we won 12 basketball games over 2 years, was I kept saying to my buddy, the athletic director, I kept saying, the worst part about all this for you is it's not like you get the number 1 pick in next year's draft because you're this bad. You just have to suck it up. Plus, rivalries in the NFL are not the same as rivalries in college, and everybody knows it. Plus, again, I don't even really care about Jacksonville. I care about the Ravens. Cameron says the Adams family has only ever played for 1 Super Bowl in 60 years. Everything else they say is all BS. I'll say this, though. A lot of people keep pointing at Amy and saying, oh, the Titans are too cheap. The Titans are this, the Titans are that. I mean, she is still paying John Robinson not to work. So, I mean, at least you got to give her some credit for that. Kevin in Nashville says, I don't think enough is made of the DUI that Todd Downing got after the flight. Kevin, you need to send that text into the Robbie and Rex Road program, because on Robbie and Rex Road, Joe every time's like, oh, playing from Green Bay. As if, at the time when everyone's trying to figure out what in the world was actually going on, as if that wasn't a legitimate possibility. Let's go to Morgan, who's up next quickly on the program. Morgan, go ahead.
Hey, Jared, I know you take a lot of heat for your takes. You were right on this team all along. Just the question, are you down to give Levis another year, or do we want to take a quarterback high this year? I'll hang up and listen.
I mean, I haven't evaluated the quarterback, so I can't tell you that. Thank you for the call. But right now, you're not in a position to pick one of them. I will just say it like this. Let's see which quarterback plays better on Sunday. If Matt Jones plays better than Levis on Sunday, you're going to tell me that you wouldn't rather have Matt Jones? So for that, we shall see. Chad Withrow joins us next from Outkick. His thoughts on the 2-year anniversary of Amy Adams Strunk veering the team off the road to the playoffs. And what has become of the Titans since? Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, Fireball Hot Take Friday. It is 5 o'clock, which means we're joined by Chad Withrow from Outkick, thanks to a Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa. So, Chad, 2 years ago today, Amy Adams Strunk shocked, I believe, all of us by firing John Robinson with the Titans at 7-5 in first place in the AFC South with a 90+% chance of winning their third straight division title. It would have been their fourth playoffs in 4 years. Instead, they got smoked by Jacksonville the following Sunday. They lost every game the rest of the year, and since then have been 9-25, one game better than the 8-26 Carolina Panthers. The Titans have a 0.2% chance of making it to the playoffs, and their team is, I would say, legitimately and markedly worse than that very fateful day in 2022. I start with this, Chad. What do you make of that? And if you were Amy Adams Strunk, how would you reflect on what has happened in the last 2 years since she did what she did?
Well, she's got to admit that she made a mistake doing it when she did. That's step number one, because to correct a mistake, you got to first acknowledge that a mistake was made before you can improve from it. There's a clear line of demarcation here, and that it's the date that you laid out when John Robinson was fired. You said the record was 9-25 from that point forward. It's been an abject failure since they fired John Robinson. They hired the wrong guy after that, and it's just been a series of blunders. You know, I'm watching Dan Campbell last night with the post-game speech and watching his team. Now, the Lions have drafted really well, but I was thinking to myself, man, Dan Campbell is what Mike Vrabel could have been for the Titans if Mike Vrabel liked people and was nice to people. Like, they're the same guy. They're big former players that are all about the same stuff. Dan Campbell's just way friendlier and nicer to people, the media, and nicer people around. Anyway, then you can go back to the Vrabel firing, and we can second guess that and see if that was the right thing to do or not. Bottom line is the bottom line, and they haven't won enough since that point in time. So my big question moving forward is, well, there's two. One, is Amy Adams Strunk smart enough and big enough to admit a mistake and to go about correcting that mistake? And two, what's the next turning point for the Titans? If that date when John Robinson was fired sparked a 9-25 couple of seasons from that point on, that season through now, then what's next? What is it going to be? The firing of Rand Carthon? Is it going to be the firing of Brian Callahan? Is it going to be the drafting of a quarterback in this next draft? Because we know the league is cyclical and the Titans aren't going to be stuck here forever. So what's going to be that turning point for the positive? That's my big question moving forward.
See, that's not my big question. My question is this. Can Amy hire a football guy to run the whole operation? You know, and I've always said somebody with experience, a guy that's done it before. You know, a Rick Spielman, a Thomas Dimitrov, one of those kind of guys. Can she hire the right guy and then go to the owner's box and stay out of it? Because I truly believe that part of this was, hey, I want to be running this thing. I want to be number one, and let's collaborate, and everybody works together, and everybody. And I think she needs to stay in the owner's box, Chad.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look across the league, and what do most of the owners we would say are good owners? They stay out of the way of football for the most part. I mean, they have to fire people at some point if things get really bad, but they're owners that hire good people and let them do their jobs. That's across all sports. I'd say that about an athletic director too. The good athletic directors, they have a propensity to hire the right person, and those coaches go about doing their job in a good way. So, yeah, I mean, that is a big question. Does she have the knowledge to run a football organization and make football on-field decisions, but does she have both the humility and the smarts to hire the right person and to lower your own ego to stay out of the way? Now, I'm not saying that whoever she hires, should be able to go and disrespect her and talk down to her, any of that stuff. I'm just simply, because she is the boss, like you, Jared, it's can she hire someone and stay out of the way? But then the first part of that is hiring the right person. And I think to do that, she's going to need some help. I don't know who that person is, but she's going to need to rely on someone else's knowledge to help her through that process. And I don't know who's in that room with her that's going to be able to do that would have the knowledge to make the right decision on who to bring in from a football perspective.
Yeah. You know the lay of the land around here, I guess, to a certain extent. There's no telling what she will do, but what's your gut say? Does your gut say that there will be big changes at the end of the year, or does your gut say that she'll double down on, again, the disastrous decision 2 years ago and the subsequent decisions that have followed?
Man, I think it's getting bad enough where something's going to happen. You know, we've seen her be very reactive to bad things. So I feel like some sort of change is going to happen. I don't know if it's been a mistake and make the coach a one and done or firing Rand Carthon. My guess is that once they fired Mike Vrabel, if it didn't work out after that, Rand Carthon was going to be the next to go. So he's probably going to be the one on the chopping block. But, I mean, look, if given the past history of, you know, she fires John Robinson because she's upset because they lost to the Eagles after he traded away A.J. Brown, then she fires Mike Vrabel because Mike Vrabel isn't willing to sit there and be a good boy and take the pat on the head from the owner and have her, you know, do whatever she wants with the team in terms of leadership and management, and she fires them for that reason, then yeah, I think that if they continue to lose, and especially if they continue to look like they did in Washington on Sunday, somebody's going to get fired. It's probably going to be Rand Carthon, could be both.
Mm-hmm. Chad Withrow with us on the program. I have said that I am rooting for Jacksonville on Sunday. I see no tangible benefit to a Titan victory on Sunday, yet there will be some people that say that is not a real fan. What do you think of Sunday's game, and is it okay for Titan fans to root for Jacksonville to win?
It's absolutely okay. This is professional sports. This isn't college. There's no tangible benefit to root against your team in college because there's no draft pick at stake, right? So now if you're saying I'm rooting against the coach because I really want it to be a no-brainer for the AD to fire the coach, I can kind of understand that. But in college, you root for your team no matter what, because even at the end of a bad season, it's cool to beat a rival, or it's nice to win a game against a team you don't like. So that's the college mindset. The pro mindset, especially in the NFL, is if you have a way to lose to help your draft standing or to help you and I'll take it twofold, help the draft standing and convince everyone that Will Levis is not the guy, because he's not. And the more, you know, you come out of games where people saying, well, Will Levis isn't the biggest problem today. Well, great. He's still a problem. Even if he's not the biggest problem on a terrible team, he's still a problem, and he's definitely not the answer. So I think it's okay for Titans fans to root against this team for both draft picks and to understand, and for everyone to fully understand in the front office, that Will Levis isn't the guy, so they can move forward.
Sounds like you haven't been wowed by the last 4 weeks of Will Levis's play, unlike a lot of other people around here.
Yeah, what has he done? I mean, he still throws a pick. You know, he throws a pick six the game before. He's been better, yes, but he's still seeing some things a little bit late. It's just, Jared, if he was 21 and came out as a 20-year-old rookie in the league, I'd be more willing to forgive some of this. But the guy is an old second-year player who's played a lot. He's just simply not the answer. Anyone can see it. Now, could he play his way into being the bridge guy next year, you know, under a rookie deal? Maybe, as they try to find the quarterback, because maybe they're not going to draft in a spot where they can get their guy this year, or they just don't love any of these quarterbacks. But to think that he is the franchise quarterback for years and years to come, I think is foolish.
Yeah, so the one thing that I guess I'm having a hard time with is I do think it would be hard even for Jaden Daniels to be on this team and have success because the team is so bad. But at the same time, I think we're just comparing Levis to how bad he was at the beginning of the year. And I think that's where people are optimistic. Like, he's better than he was at the beginning of the year. Well, great. So was Doug Sling Johnson when he played one game for the Titans in 2004. Like, so was Matt Mock out of LSU. But I think this is why I want them to lose, Chad.
I mean, he lost the first game for them. The Titans, as bad as they are, outplayed the Bears that day. And he single-handedly lost the game. And he's not a rookie. That was game one of his second year. How did he get worse? He got worse from the Miami game the year before to the first batch of games this year. And then he gets hurt, and Mason Rudolph comes in, and suddenly comes back, and he's a little bit better, yeah. But is that going to make me forget about the start of the year? And he's certainly not been good enough to start winning games for this team, multiple, since he's come back. So I just look, yes, he's been better. And also, yes, he's still not good enough. And a third, yes, he's never going to be good enough. Never.
I'm a little bit more optimistic than you, but not much. I haven't seen anything to wow me, but again, here's what I'm afraid is going to happen, Chad. I'm afraid they're going to win some of these games down the stretch, end up picking 12th, which means they'll draft another guard. They'll pick 12th, and everybody stays, including Levis. And that scares the crap out of me.
Yeah, what worries me are the 2 games against Jacksonville down the stretch is going to really hurt their draft standing. And again, I'm not opposed to bringing Levis back because you have him under contract and letting him be the bridge quarterback a year from now. But he's not going to be the guy long term. He can go and be a backup somewhere else and be a backup in the league for years and years to come, but he's not going to be your franchise quarterback. So even if you don't get it this year, you're going to have to find that guy eventually and very soon. So look, he's been better, but the floor was so low at the start of this year that I think Titans fans are tricking themselves into believing that this guy actually has the potential to be a franchise quarterback. I really can't think of many second-year NFL guys that were bad their first year, started out even worse their second year, got hurt both years, but then also comes back and looks a little bit better, but still really not that good when they come back to go on to be great quarterbacks for that franchise. There's not many of them that you can count.
Chad Withrow with us, presented by Moments Peace Salon and Day Spa. The hot seat awaits next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company Fireball Hot Take Friday. Chad Withrow with us from a Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa, or from Outkick, presented by Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa. I do believe they have perfect gifts for you for the holidays. A Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa. Willie does those spots. Chad, do you have a thought, or do you want to go right to the hot seat?
Let's get to it.
Number one, Mac Jones will start at quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars. If you were an NFL head coach, general manager, or owner, who would you rather have build your franchise around? Mac Jones or Will Levis?
Mac Jones. It's close because, Mac Jones he's had more time to show what he is in the league than what Will Levis has. But I was listening to you earlier, Jared, talking about the bad hand he was dealt in New England with the coaching situation, and I agree with you on that one. I'm curious to see how he plays down the stretch. He looked good coming in relief against Houston last week, so I do want to see more of Mac Jones, but if you're asking me who would I rather have as a franchise quarterback right now, it's Mac Jones.
Number two, what are your thoughts on Bill Belichick interviewing for the North Carolina job?
It seems like a play to get his son the head coaching job in waiting, that he's not going to be there too long and he wants to hand it off to his son. I saw Ollie Conley report that part of the negotiation with Bill Belichick is that his son will be on staff and automatically be named the coach in waiting. I think that's part of it. Look, I think Bill Belichick loves ball. The dude wants to coach, and the dude wants to have control, and he's probably thinking to himself, I didn't get a job last year. Maybe I'm not going to get one in the NFL, so let's go ahead and look at all options, and maybe I'll go in college. Now, do I think Bill Belichick is going to suck up to some 17-year-old kid in recruiting? No. So it's going to be interesting to see who he hires as his general manager, because that's what it's going to take. They're going to have someone that is in charge of recruiting, transfer portal, all of that. You can let Bill Belichick kind of be the closer, sort of like Deion Sanders in Boulder, and let the recruits come to his office. He's not going to go to them at the end of the process, but someone's going to have to handle all that for Bill Belichick, because I don't think he's going to be doing that.
Do you think he's actually going to get that Carolina job and take it, or do you think he's going to be in the NFL?
I think he's going to end up in the NFL, but I am intrigued by the idea of him in college. If I had to guess right now, I think another NFL guy is going to get that job. I think it's going to be Arthur Smith. He's going to go back to his alma mater. And think about the possibilities of who Arthur Smith's dad is with NIL. His dad has already put a name on a building at North Carolina with a donation when Arthur was there. That could be a huge help in recruiting for North Carolina if suddenly FedEx is a big player for them.
I do believe, though, Arthur already turned him down.
That who did?
Arthur already turned him down. But I'm not sure if that's, I heard them talking about that in Boston. Maybe that's the case. Number three, what really matters this week as far as conference championship weekend is concerned? Oh, we lost Chad. And I was actually kind of fascinated by that because, Ian and I were talking about this during a break, and we were talking about the conference championship weekend. And I'm like, which one of these games, yes, okay, does Penn State get the bye or does Oregon get the bye? But again, they're both making the playoffs. So where's the juice as far as this is concerned? Chad is back with us from Outkick. So Chad, where the next one is, what really matters this weekend as far as the college football playoff is concerned with championship weekend?
Clemson SMU matters. If Clemson wins, I'm convinced that SMU will fall completely out of the bracket and Alabama will stay. I think that's an elimination game. Many think that SMU could knock Alabama out and stay in the bracket. I don't buy it. Alabama's going to get the benefit of the doubt no matter what. They'll stay in. SMU will be out. It's a playing game for Clemson. Boise State, UNLV matters tonight. UNLV could knock Boise State possibly out of that playoff also. And I think Penn State, Oregon matters if Penn State gets blown out. That's going to matter for seeding. I don't think much, Georgia, Texas, obviously it matters for the bye. But it's not like either one of those teams not going to host if they lose. So those are the things I'm going to be watching more than anything else this weekend. And I think Iowa State, Arizona State is quietly it's going to be the best game of the weekend. And we know the loser of that one's out of the playoff, the winner's in. I think that's going to be a terrific game.
Do you think that the 12-team playoff takes some juice out of conference championship weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does for some. It has not taken any juice out of the season. I think it's been a huge help to the regular season in college football, and overall, it's been a big win. But yeah, I think Texas being their first year in the conference, playing in the championship game in Atlanta, is a big deal. But it takes a little luster from that game. Yeah, I mean, I think overall it changes the dynamic a little bit of this weekend. But it's also, it's very meaningful because it's not like, not winning this game now that you're in it isn't a huge benefit. You're going to get a bye if you win this game, if you're Big Ten or SEC. So that's going to be huge this weekend.
What do you think of Tennessee being ranked behind Ohio State in the latest college football playoff poll? And what do you think of Tennessee having to travel to Ohio Stadium?
I mean, it makes sense. Like, I could make an argument for either one to be, flip-flopped on top of the other one. So Ohio State, they have 2 top 10 wins. So mathematically, that's what's holding their strength of schedule up right now. That's what's holding everything up. Outside of that, they haven't really done a lot. And people want to point to, Tennessee's got a bad loss against Arkansas, a bad loss at Arkansas. Well, I'm here to tell you, losing at home to that Michigan team that finished 7-5 because you lost to them, a team that couldn't do anything on offense, to me is a far worse loss than losing at night on the road 19-14, throwing into the end zone in the final seconds against Arkansas. So we can compare losses with those teams too. And if you go to the best loss, well, Tennessee lost by 14 at Georgia, and Ohio State lost by 1 point at Oregon. So again, I can see it. The SEC is way tougher than the Big Ten top to bottom. The Big Ten is extremely top heavy, and I'm not just talking about the top half. I'm talking about the top 3, 4, 5 teams. Where the SEC, you got everybody except for Mississippi State that beat somebody big in the conference and could beat somebody big. So I think that's a big difference. But again, I'm not, impassioned over it. I understand why Ohio State is there and why Tennessee is 1 spot behind them.
Okay. Who do you think would be a better coach at Ohio State, Ryan Day or Mike Vrabel?
Ryan Day. Ryan Day, because I don't think Mike Vrabel ever wants to coach in college. And I know that about Mike Vrabel, at least when he was here, that he's not going to deal with it. I think the stuff that Ryan Day is probably okay putting up with in the college game helps them get talent and keep talent at Ohio State. I don't think Mike Vrabel would play any of those games. And for that reason, I think Ryan Day is a better coach for Ohio State. Now, do I think Mike Vrabel's a better in-game coach than Ryan Day? Yes. But do I think Mike Vrabel, do I think that he would spoil on the college game quickly if he was at Ohio State? I think yes, it would be very quick. He wouldn't want to do it anymore.
Last one. Where do you think Mike Vrabel should end up?
I think he'd be good with the Chicago Bears if he hired the right offensive coordinator. But we know that was a problem for him with the Titans because they need someone for Caleb Williams. I think the New York Jets could be a good spot for him. Really, I think with Vrabel, it's anywhere that would be willing to give him some level of control, that he's going to have a great relationship with the GM. And that's not a lot of places. But I'll go with those 2 spots right now. Another one, and I can't really think about it because I've been thinking about, Deion Sanders with this job for a long time. I think the Raiders could be a good spot for Mike Vrabel also. So I'll go with those 3.
Fitz thinks it will be Vrabel to the Raiders. I think Vrabel will go to Jacksonville. I think he will be their coach. I think Vrabel cares about the state income tax. I think Jacksonville's like his kind of city. I think the low nature of the market is something that Vrabel would probably appreciate. And I think the fact that he's got a quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, I think that would be enough for him.
Could be. And I think he's going to do a good job wherever he goes. I'm a big Mike Vrabel fan.
Chad Withrow from Outkick, presented by A Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa, as always, joining us on the hot seat. Chad, great stuff. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the college football, and we will talk to you soon.
All right, Jared. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Yep, Chad Withrow on the program. So I've done the math. And let's just say the decision of 2 years ago, it ain't looking very good. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
Honestly, I had made the decision. It was time to move forward. There was no reason to go 6, 7, 8 weeks, however long we remain in the season. It was not fair to John. It was not fair to the team. It just seemed the right thing. It gives us plenty of opportunity now to identify future candidates that we're going to interview, to get to know watch the internal candidates. It's, I'm just not that person that's going to sit on a decision like that.
That was Amy Adams Strunk on December 9th of 2022, ahead of the Titans shellacking at the hands of Jacksonville, which would propel Jacksonville to the AFC title out of nowhere in 2022. On that day, on December 6th of 2022, 2 years ago to the day, the Tennessee Titans were in 7-5 and in first place in the AFC South with a 3-game lead. And the Titans game release noted that the Titans' .867 winning percentage, which was 13-2 in divisional games from 2020 to 2022, was the best in the National Football League. Since then, the Titans are 9-25. The Panthers, over that same span, are 8-26. And again, the difference being one game where you beat them at Nissan Stadium by 7 points. The Titans are 2-9 entering Sunday's contest against Jacksonville against the AFC South. The Titans have one win over a playoff team. Since then, that was Miami last year, although Houston might be number 2. And Mike Vrabel has subsequently been fired. So I have 2 quick thoughts. Number 1, Amy said in that cut, it wasn't fair to John for her to keep him around for them to see if they could make the playoffs at 7-5 and in first place, for whatever reason that would be. But she also said that they wanted to identify the candidates. They wanted to check in on the internal candidates. They wanted to move forward. So I have got a breakdown. Ran Carthon versus John Robinson. John Robinson inherited the 32nd team in the NFL at 3-13. Ran Carthon inherited the 22nd team at 7-10. John Robinson made the playoffs 4 times, including in his second year. Ran Carthon has 0 playoff appearances, and the Titans have a 0.2% chance of making the playoffs this year. John Robinson's record was 66-43. That is a 61% winning percentage, or 605 if we're being technical. Ran Carthon is 9-20, 31%. So 61% under Robinson, 31% under Carthon. Pro Bowl players drafted. This does not include signed, in which guys from Brendan Trowick to Roger Saffold or Ben Jones would count for Robinson. Those guys don't count. This is drafted. Ran Carthon so far, 0. And Ian, I do think it is fair to say there will be 0 Pro Bowlers from the 2024 Tennessee Titans draft class.
From the draft class? Yeah, most likely. Yeah.
John Robinson, 5. Kevin Byard, Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, Jeffrey Simmons, and Harold Landry. All pros drafted, 0 for the current administration, 4 for John Robinson, Jack Conklin, Derrick Henry, Kevin Byard, and Jeffrey Simmons.
Got to give Carthon a couple more years to see how that pans out, though.
Or we could just compare them to the first 2, where the Titans were in the playoffs. The Titans had winning records in each of their first 2 years. The Titans had already drafted Pro Bowl players like Kevin Byard.
But they hadn't made the Pro Bowl yet, had they?
Jack Conklin. Yeah. So he was an All-Pro in 2017. He led the league in NFL. He led the NFL in interceptions. So Byard and Conklin were already All-Pros by then.
Okay.
The truth is, it has been an unmitigated disaster. It has been a failure since Amy Adams Strunk, for whatever reason, decided to fire John Robinson 2 years ago today. In fact, her statement at the time said, since becoming controlling owner in 2015, my goal has been to raise the standard for what is expected in all facets of our organization. I believe we have made significant progress both on and off the field through investments in leadership, personnel, and new ideas. This progress includes the core of our business, the football team itself, which is regularly evaluated both by results, wins and losses, and team construction / roster building. I am proud of what we have accomplished in my 8 seasons of ownership, but I believe there is more to be done and higher aspirations to be met. Is there any part of that at this point in time as they get set to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars in what is clearly a meaningless game? Is there any part of that that has actually come to fruition, that has actually been met? And I would argue the answer is no. And then that takes me to kind of the other thing that I find to be shocking, but considering that I don't think much of the current administration, and that includes both Brinker and Carthon, but I find it just be so fascinating, which is a lot of the problems that this administration has had were problems that John Robinson had himself. For instance, trading for an injured player and giving him a lot of money. John Robinson did that with Julio Jones. Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker have done that with L'Jarius Sneed. Drafting guys with red flags. John Robinson did that. And while it worked out with Jeffrey Simmons, it didn't with the injury problems from Corey Davis. It didn't with Caleb Farley's back. Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker ignored the red flags and drafted T'Vondre Sweat. Swinging and missing on guys in the first round. Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker did that with Peter Skoronski, a guard with the 11th overall pick. And we know that outside of Jeffrey Simmons and Jack Conklin, John Robinson, whether it was Corey Davis, Rashawn Evans, Isaiah Wilson, Caleb Farley, Treylon Burks, had made some serious mistakes. And letting good players leave. Those were decisions that Robinson made, sometimes rolls of the dice. You know, everybody gets on Robinson's ass for letting Jack Conklin go. But what they don't remember is that the Titans went into that offseason thinking they had 2 tags. The transition tag, which would give them the right to match any contract that Derrick Henry would have signed anywhere else, and a franchise tag that they could have used on Jack Conklin. However, enough progress was made in the collective bargaining agreement that they decided to eliminate the 2 tags the weekend before free agency, and the Titans used the 1 tag on Derrick Henry. They couldn't have used it on Jack Conklin, even if they wanted to. But he gets a lot of crap for that. Trading A.J. Brown. Now, that was a mistake. And I think they got played by Tory Dandy, the agent. But that doesn't mean that this group hasn't let good players leave. Danico Autry, 11 and a half sacks right out the door. Derrick Henry, one of the best players in the NFL, gone and replaced by Tony Pollard, who's good, but he's not Derrick Henry. It is wild to me that it's almost like they've made the exact same decisions. And I'm talking about the bad ones. This doesn't include the idea of trading for the draft haul that got them Derrick Henry and Conklin and Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith, etc., or a 4th round pick for Ryan Tannehill. But the bad decisions seem to be the same ones. And yet, Amy hasn't fired any of them midseason, and I don't know why. I guess they're just nicer to each other about all of this. John Robinson was more publicly accountable than the Titans are now. But I do wonder, if you were to take over a job, why would you do the exact same things that got the last guy fired? And yet, that's exactly what they did. 615-737-1025. One texter says, you can rag on Amy all you want, but she will always be the owner. And that comes from Larry. Larry, have you noticed I haven't called for Amy to sell the team? Fox 17 put out a poll asking if there should be leadership changes. 84% of them said yes on the Twitter poll. And a lot of the replies were, we need new ownership. And if you noticed, I haven't said that. In fact, if you listen to this show enough, you know that one of the opens has a cut of me saying, I know Amy can be a good owner. I don't remember when I said that, but I do remember when she was a good owner, when they were winning 61% of their games, when they were drafting all pros in the first, second, and third round of John Robinson's first draft, when they were going through one draft with Jeffrey Simmons, A.J. Brown, Nate Davis, Amani Hooker, David Long Jr. I've seen the Titans be run like a competent organization. But the truth is, for the last 2 years, The Titans have not met that standard of competence. And that's not just Rand Carthon. And that's not just Chad Brinker. That includes Mike Vrabel with some of his coaching staff decisions. That includes Amy Adams Strunk with her handling of Carthon and Vrabel. See, the difference here is not, I'm asking for Amy to step down, because I'm not doing that. I'm asking for Amy to do what she was doing when this organization was winning. And that was by staying out of it. I get it. Robinson could be kind of an a-hole sometimes. Certainly wasn't an a-hole to the level Vrabel was, but he could be. And obviously we know Vrabel. But they won. They weren't Mr. Nice Guy all the time. Sometimes I think Robinson's mind was a little too closed. Sometimes he took some risks that were way too rich for my blood, like Julio Jones. Sometimes I think they did some downright dumb crap, like Jadeveon Clowney. But again, they won. They were in first place when he got fired. What I'm doing is I am highlighting how Amy Adams Strunk taking over the organization is what has led to the 9-25 that you've had since then. That is what's going to lead to what I believe is going to be a completely empty stadium on Sunday. I know I'm not going. So when it comes to the Titans, and it comes to the decision-making that's been made, and it comes to, I'm not saying hire the guys they've fired, because everything in the NFL has a shelf life. But I am saying it's time to get back to the basics. And it's time to get back to guys that know ball. Because as bad as it was then that she said she had to make the move right then and there, that was 100 times better than what it's been since. Six-pack picks are next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, time for six-pack picks. I do first want to tell the folks Jake and TD are coming up after us, so stay tuned for that. And also, I want to send my condolences out to Bob Holt, who I did not know very well, but I did read a lot of over the years. Bob Holt, when you talk about the Arkansas Razorbacks and covering them for years and years and years, Bob Holt was a fixture. I believe it's the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. And, I mean, he was a stalwart in SEC circles, passed away this week, and they will be remembering him at the SEC championship game. And our thoughts are with Bob and his family and those that read him like I did over the years. All right, Ian, how did we do last week?
Okay, well, last week we had a little bit of a scheduling snafu.
Hiatus last week.
Yeah, hiatus last week. So this is actually from 2 weeks ago when the Titans played the Texans. So this 3-3 that week. You missed week 14, so that was week 13. 3-3. So the season total is now 39, 38, and 1.
Okay. 39, 38, and 1. We are right there on the chopping block.
Right there.
Let's get right to it.
Ah, yes. This new wonderful themes music. We will start with the SEC Championship. Number 5, Georgia versus number 2, Texas. 3 o'clock on ABC. Over under 49.5. Texas minus 2.5.
Now, I said in my preseason predictions that whoever won the first game was going to lose the second game. I actually had Georgia and Texas in the SEC title game, and I had Texas winning the first game at home, and thus Georgia winning the second game. But Georgia won the first game, so I'm going to take Texas to win tomorrow in the SEC title game. I don't know why. I think Georgia has the better team, but I just think Georgia has more lapses than Texas. Texas showed me something with their performance at A&M. I'll take the Longhorns.
All right, we actually get to play this music for once. Number 3, Penn State versus number 1, Oregon. Big Ten Championship, 7 o'clock, CBS. Over under 50.5, Oregon minus 3.5.
You know, I'm shocked this game is on CBS. I thought Fox, kind of got this with everything. I'll take Oregon, but I'm nervous about it. This doesn't really count as a big game for James Franklin because, they're still in the playoff no matter what. So I could see James Franklin winning this and it being James Franklin got his one. But I think Oregon's got the better team. And let's watch Will Stein, the OC at Oregon, light up the scoreboard. I'll take the Ducks. Give me Oregon to win.
Okay, to the ACC championship game, 7 o'clock.
They don't play that music for the ACC.
They don't play that for 7 o'clock ABC game?
No, just that's the SEC.
Oh, well, anyway, number 17 Clemson versus number 8 SMU, ACC championship, 7 o'clock ABC. Over under on this game is a little bit on the higher side, 55.5. SMU is minus 2.5.
I'll take SMU. I think they're the better team. I watch them both play Louisville, and I think SMU's got their ducks in a row more than Clemson.
Okay, switching over to the NFL. Big game out west, NFC West. 7-5 Seahawks at the 6-6 Cardinals. 3:05 on CBS. 44.5. Arizona's minus 2.5.
I'll take Arizona. I don't know why. Feeling a little juice with Kyler. I feel like Arizona's a team that just enough. I'll take Arizona.
Good Sunday night.
Chargers.
Okay, 8-4 Chargers at the 11-1 Chiefs. 7:20 NBC Sunday night. KC minus 4.
Chargers. Every time these two teams play, it goes right down to the wire. And the difference this time is going to be Jim Harbaugh. I think that Kansas City's been playing with fire. This is the second, real good team they're going to be playing lately. They got beat by Buffalo at the end. Give me the Chargers. Chargers are beating the Chiefs.
Okay. The 2-10 Jaguars are coming to town. Noon on CBS. 40.5 for the over-under. Low as we would expect. Titans minus 3.5.
I'm taking Jacksonville. I think the Titans have some real problems. I think Jacksonville also has some real problems. But I think that for whatever reason, I think the Titans, it's just so discombobulated. I think there will be a special team snafu in there. I think Mac Jones will outplay Will Levis this week. I'll go Jacksonville 20, Tennessee 17. That's it for us. Everybody have a great weekend. The award-winning pregame show, 9:30 on Sunday. Jake and TD are next.